Welcome. We are so excited to have you for the first ever episode of the Off Meta podcast. I'm Ganesh from Deck Check.
And I'm Samurai Dancer. We got some sneaky morphs and a little green song in our heart. Welcome to Off Meta, where the brews that are hot shoot their shot.
There's tons of resources out there already about the most meta decks like Kinnan and Blue Farm, so we thought let's focus on these fascinating off-meta cEDH decks that most people haven't seen yet. In every episode, we'll be doing a deep dive into 2 off-meta decks with interviews, and we'll have a fresh new episode every other Friday by 6 p.m. Central. Coming up on the Off Meta podcast.
Fab everything. 10 mana. Flip it for 2. Give them all your permanents. 20 permanents. Draw 20 cards. Win the game.
Okay, this is actually crazy then.
Yeah.
Off Meta is not responsible for the tournament results of decks and cards mentioned on Off Meta. If there's a brew you'd like us to take a look at, or you'd like to appear on the show itself, just let us know in the Discord.
So first up, we have a quick section for off-meta news, where we share with you off-meta decks that have performed well in the past couple weeks.
The biggest thing in the news right now is the Kadena winning the Pantheon tournament. We are very lucky to be interviewing Rajjix, like the winner, and do a full deck tech right after this part in other news.
Other news, in top 4, we've had Marnius Calgar, which is a control mid-range list, Esper list, looking to grad advantage out with this commander. We have Magda also making top 4 of the same tournament, which is a standard mid-range Magda list with Sphere of Resistance and Godfarer statue. And then we have Borborygmos and Thibblethip. We will potentially have an interview with the creator of the deck, so definitely subscribe if you're interested in seeing that.
Now, not top 16. These are decks that we want to keep an eye out. They haven't quite made their bones, but they're definitely trying. Number 1, Slimefoot and Squee. That's a Reanimator Dockside strategy. I saw one of the Tyon brothers take this earlier in the year. It's a very interesting idea. Naromeha Master Wizard. That's an ETB spam where they're going to copy a spell that blinks a spell, that blinks like a permanent and a land, and they're just going to burn people out. Then we got Brago, the king of the blink. This guy actually got a really big power boost, like all decks did when the One Ring came out. And then, of course, an oldie but goodie. Ganesh, you remember Nekasar the Mind Razor, right?
I do. I used to play him.
Yeah. We've been seeing a resurgence of this as the mid-range strategy to draw and draw and draw more cards has been appearing, and it being a control deck works very well against mid-range, especially a mid-range draw strategy.
Yeah. So if you'd like to hear more about any of these decks, just let us know in the comments, and make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode coming in 2 weeks. Also, if you have a spicy deck and, again, would like to appear on the show, just let us know anytime. So let's get started with Kadena. All right, so let's get started with Roy, whose username is Rajjix. So let's get started with how long have you actually been playing cEDH? What got you into it? We'll start there.
Sure. Well, I have a very good friend that introduced me to Commander, basically. I used to play Draft with him. Before I moved to Spain, like 3 years ago, we played some EDH, some fun decks, the old Atraxa, Gonti, for example. Then I moved to Spain, to Barcelona. There was no cEDH. I didn't play cEDH there. And then I moved to Madrid. There's a very nice LGS here that we go to every Friday night. I had a Mythics deck, like let's say an 8/10. I used to go there, have fun. I used to get wrecked because Mythics is not really a cEDH deck. And they usually give out prizes for like the top 5, top 6. And I was like, I want those store credits, man. You know, it's nice to win. So I started building better decks. My first, like I would say, 9/10 deck was Rograch Arden. At like a year ago, everyone was playing super farm, super slow, stacksy decks. And I was like, I want to beat everyone. Like I want to hammer people, you know. So I started doing that, and then I was like, I'm someone that likes control. You know, I like Dimir. And I was like, I want to play something that's strong but not played by everyone. I want to play something unique.
Mhm.
So I don't remember how, but I found Kadena. So somehow I found success with this commander, and usually like every Friday night I am top 3, top 4 in this event, which is a good sign that the commander is actually decent.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So what's your favorite commander besides Kadena?
My favorite commander besides Kadena, I would say my first real commander, Mizzix.
Mizzix. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
very
So yeah,
fun to play commander.
let's go ahead and hop right into it. So why play this deck? Why play Kadena? Yeah, could you tell us a little bit more about like what makes her good? A bit about like how the morph ability affects your gameplay, stuff like that.
Sure. It's gonna be a long answer, so you have to forgive me, guys. Kadena
That's great.
Kadena is only viable because we are in a slower meta. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That there is no way this commander works if you have 2 or 3 turbo players in your pod. So forget about that. So why play Kadena? I'm gonna give you a small explanation on how you want your personality to be if you want to play Kadena. It's more about like how you feel about the commander and how you play it. So if you ever played Red Alert or Generals or these games, some people like to go all offensive. Some people like to play like, I want to build turrets, defend my base, and then in the late game win the game. This is Kadena. Kadena, you want to build your morphs, have protection, stop other players from winning, and then you win the game, which is pretty slow. It's not very fast, it's pretty slow, but the power that Kadena has in the mid to late game is amazing. We're going to talk about the morphs later on, but you have the ability to interact under silence, under Captain of Eos, under Split Second. You have the ability to interact with everything without them having the ability to interact with your morphs, unless they have a stifle, which is something that usually no one has, right? So if you can build this base, these defenses, and you're not building them for like, you're not paying a price to build them. You are putting a morph and you're drawing a card. So it's like you're building your board while getting advantage, but it is slow. So you have to be aware that your deck is slow, but it will get you there eventually.
We should probably like announce what Kadena actually does. So she's a 3/3 in Sultai, so 1 black, green, blue. She says the first face down creature spell you cast each turn costs 3 less to cast, and whenever a face down creature enters the battlefield under your control, you draw a card. So she's a bit of she ramps your face down creatures, and she also draws you cards just for every single one, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, very cool. So yeah, so I'll let you take this next one, Samurai.
Yeah, I like looking at it, and my question is, what's the strengths of going this over another Sultai commander? Like, yeah, she draws cards, but like the other Sultai commanders also provide advantages. What's like the better advantage of her? What are her strengths?
First of all, uniqueness. So it's, if you like playing something unique, Kadena. Second of all, the advantage of having tools that no one knows what they are. So for example, not only you have hidden morphs, also people do not know what the hell are you playing. So most of the tournaments, most of the tournament and Ka0s that I was playing, like people were like, what, how exactly do you win? And I'm like, I don't know. We'll see how I win. I have no idea. So not only people are not aware of what creatures do we play, how do we win, even if they were aware, the fact that you have hidden creatures face down makes your opponents scared of winning. Like, let's say you're playing, I don't know, Timna Chrome, you cast a silence. What can interact with you? It's like Otawara, Boseiju, and like one more card, right?
Yeah.
Channeling abilities. With this deck, you can interact with everything they do. It doesn't matter, which is something that is very unique and scares everyone from going for the win, which gives you more time to establish your board. So that's basically why I love this deck. Also, it's we'll talk about this probably later on, but she's a Hullbreaker Horror Outlet, which is one of the best creatures in blue.
Right.
So
very true.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Also, I note that Morph is like a special action. It's not an activated ability, right? So like if someone had a Draneth out, you could still unmorph your stuff.
You mean Grand Abolisher? Yes.
Grand Abolisher. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Grand Abolisher. So like basically you're doing a mind game from the get-go. This is a mind fucker deck.
Very true.
Like that's impressive, man. Like I gotta admit.
Yeah, there's nothing that can really stop you from activating a morph ability, right?
No.
Like, yeah, because like you morph something and you just morph it, and then the ability that the permanent triggers just goes on the stack. No one can do anything about it.
You only need priority. Other than that, you can do it at any time you want.
Okay, so you do need priority, but you can do it whenever you under split second, under silence, everything. Okay, very cool, very cool. Okay, so the next question we have is, I'm sure you'll have a blast with this one. How does this deck actually win? And I'm sure there's like a bunch of lines.
There isn't many.
There's not? Okay.
No, there is Hullbreaker, infinite mana, infinite draws with your commander. You just need to have a morph in play. Infinite mana, bounce your morph infinity, draw your deck, kill them with Orcish, with Tassa, bunch of potential. Orcish Bowmaster, Tassa and Consultation or Tainted Pact, and we have what's it called? Mnemonic Betrayal. Our third win condition. That's not very reliable, but again, we want to slow the game down. So turn 5, 6, 7, they're gonna have stuff in the graveyard. And I had something in my first tournament. Like I played 2 cEDH tournaments, the Mox Masters, which I almost qualified to the top 16, and this one. The Mox Masters, I had my favorite combo in the deck, but since it was my first time, I had no experience in the cEDH tournaments. Having timed tournaments is not good for Kadena.
Yeah.
That much. It's fine, but it's not that good. And my combo, which is if you can see down there in the considering, there's a creature called Brine Elemental. So this guy, you flip it for 7 mana. When it's turned face up, each opponent skips their on-tap step. So basically, you lock them down. And then we have our second creature, which is the best creature in the deck, I would say, Vesuvian Shapeshifter. This guy, you flip it for 2 mana, it becomes any creature. And if you flip it to a creature that's already face up, that's already a morph that's faced up, it copies the ability. And in our upkeep, it can turn back face down. So basically, you flip up the Brine Elemental, everyone skips their on-tap step, right? Goes back to your turn. You flip the Vesuvian Shapeshifter to the Brine Elemental. They skip their next on-tap step. Then it goes back to your turn. You flip it face down. Then you flip it face up again. And you keep doing this until they die somehow. You kill them with the attack, you kill them with whatever you want.
You ran into the old Tivit problem of you needed multiple turns to close out with that combo.
Yeah. That's a very slow combo. A very slow combo, but basically it's called, I think this was played in standard, it's called Pickle Lock or something like this.
It's the Pickle Lock.
Yeah, that's one. But it's too slow for actual cEDH game. So I took it out in the Ka0s tournament.
So you only have to pay 1 and a blue to flip this face up, if I'm reading this right.
Yep.
The Vesuvian Shapeshifter, yes, but the Brine Elemental is 7 mana, which is the biggest one.
Right. Now, so you're basically cheating the Brine Elemental's like 7 mana cost with the Vesuvian for 2, and then you just keep doing it because it keeps flipping. Okay, I understand.
Exactly. Now there is a way to cheat the mana cost on morphs with like a display circuiton, but it's not really a display circuiton deck. So
Are you
Yeah.
on Displacer Kitten? I don't
No.
see
No,
it.
no,
Okay.
no.
Not anymore.
No.
I imagine that went away the minute the Brine Elemental came out.
The thing is, like usually you want to combo the spacer with like the Teferi or something, which we don't
Yeah.
really have access to.
Exactly. Yeah. That's true. It's a little clunky too. Sometimes it can be.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's
Also,
your. Go
yeah,
ahead.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Yeah. Also, we don't have much instance because most of our morphs are the instance that we want.
Yeah, you're running 17
So
instance here. Yeah.
yeah, it's not that much. So having a displacer is not guaranteed to be activation every time we want.
Mm-hmm.
So, like,
Okay.
what's your general game plan? Like, what's the general strategy? Like, you said you wanted to build up your morphs. Like, what's like a keepable hand with this?
What's a keepable hand? For sure, you want what's it called? Ramp. For sure, you want ramp,
Okay.
and for sure, you want something that is gonna draw you cards. So let's assume for a minute that there is no Mystic Study or Mystic Remora. Okay.
Okay.
These are hands that you're gonna keep for sure. Okay. Having turn one birds, turn one Deathrite, turn one Crypt Soaring. These are very good.
Yep.
You want to get your commander down turn 2, turn 3. And you want to have a morph in your hand so you can commander, morph. Draw a card.
Commander. Okay. Yeah.
So the early game is get enough mana to set up your board. And then as soon as you play your commander, you want to play a morph, pass the turn. Play a morph, pass the turn, unless you have something very important like the Wandering or something. As long as you are setting your board up with morphs, drawing cards, and keeping interaction to stop everyone from winning. Not everyone.
Mhm.
Like you don't want to be the main police, but you want to be somehow policing the game. Okay. So turn 2, 3, you want to set up the commander and the morph. Turn 4, 5, you want to be drawing cards, and making sure that you are ready to stop the ultimate piece that they have to win a game. And then in the late game, you want to probably either win with a Hullbreaker or set up your win with a Teferi. This is basically our way to win.
So Teferi is your silence, basically.
Yeah.
It's Teferi Mage of Zelfir. Basically, opponents can only cast spells when they could cast a sorcery. And it has flash too, so I imagine you flash it in on someone's end step. You go to your turn, they're all silenced, and you just win the game. Yeah.
You play Tatassa and Demonic. But basically, Teferi has another thing that you can do as well, which is doesn't come up that often because when you play Teferi, usually you want to win.
You win. Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah.
But Teferi and the Final Word Phantom that we have allows us to play a morph for free on every turn. Because Kadena says on each turn, you can cast morph for free.
What's Final Word Phantom's mana cost?
3 beta.
The 3 mana. I'm gonna find it really quick. Oh, I was actually about to ask you about that. Yes, it's a new card. It has flash flying, and during each opponent's end step, you can cast spells as though they had flash. It's a 1/4 Spirit Detective. Yeah. So this basically lets you. This actually works really well with your commander, right? Because you can have this out, and every end step, the first face down creature spell, so your first morph is going to cost 0, right? So every turn you're flashing out one morph, you're drawing a card in each end. So that's pretty cool. I like that.
And it works really good with our plan, which is pass the turn with full mana. So if it comes to the end step before your turn and nothing happened, you have 6 mana, play your Wandering, play your big creature, I don't know, Manglehorn, play your something, Italian, whatever you want to play on that end step before your turn so you don't waste mana. The Final Word Phantom has been probably one of the biggest MVPs in my deck. Are
you on Born Upon a Wind? I'm not sure. I didn't see that. You're not on Born. No. Okay, but you are on Phantom.
Yeah. So basically, my thing is, I tried Born and I was like thinking, I want to be able to use my commander as ability to draw more cards. Born's gonna draw me a card. I play more for free to draw a card, but it was like draw 2, not present something useful for the Born Upon Wind, and it's only a one-time use,
Yeah.
why not play the creature that costs 1 more mana and I can play on every end step?
Yeah.
I would play Born if I was like on Necro, but my deck is not very tunable,
Fast.
you know?
Yeah. Born is like better when you like you're able to win the same turn, but you're
Exactly.
never looking to do that in this deck. It seems like. Can you win at instant? You can. Okay, so you can win at instant speed but the only way for you to do that is with Final Word in the end step with this deck.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is how I won
yeah.
in my semis and my finals, basically.
Nice.
He's also got Teferi. Oh, like Teferi also gives his creatures flash.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Does this also go? This also works, I guess. Then right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Teferi will help us win with Tassa, but Final Word Phantom helps us win with the Heartbreaker, basically.
I see. Okay. Very cool.
The deck looks really interesting. I noticed you
Yeah.
have Coveted Falcon in there. Is that just to like give people some just dead morphs?
Basically, this thing has two jobs. Either you go all in on, let's say it's your turn 6-7, you have, let's say, 10 mana, something, okay? Tap everything, 10 mana, flip it for 2, give them all your permanents, 20 permanents, draw 20 cards, win the game.
Okay, this is actually crazy then.
Yeah.
I didn't think about this.
Or for example,
just like, all or nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is used to like go all in for win, or you can either also all in to save you the game from being lost. Like someone cast an ad nauseam, you need to counter it. Give someone 3 creatures and 2 lands, draw 5. Find something.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario. Yeah, go ahead.
Have you used it to mess up someone's dockside yet?
Not yet. Not yet, but that's actually a very cool idea. Not yet. That's very cool, actually.
Could you let us know a bit about Disguise? Because how does that? Was that more like how does this ability
It's the same
work?
same thing as Morph, but the creatures have Ward 2 before they flip.
Okay. So yeah,
So
I
do actually have different what do you call them? Different covers for the creatures. One is Morph and one is Disguise, so people know. I have to tell the guys like this is Disguise, this is Morph.
Yeah, so what Coveted Falcon does for those that are listening, whenever it attacks, you gain control of a permanent you own but don't control. So that's not going to come up relevant. It's a 3-mana 1/4 flying bird. It has Disguise for 1 and a blue, but the most important ability it has is when it's turn face up, target opponent gains control of any number of target permanents you control, and then you draw a card for each one they gained control of this way. So yeah, so you can basically give someone like 20 things and draw 20. It doesn't matter because you float all your mana. That's nuts. That's really cool. I'm glad we brought this up.
Oh my.
Yeah, so yeah.
With
so I guess we kind go ahead.
With the new set, there was also 2 very nice Disguise creatures.
Yeah.
Disguise cards. The one called Exit Specialist. It's a creature bounce, which is really nice for 2 mana. And the land also. Before this new, I think it's the Murders at Karlov Manor. I had a land that was called Zoetic Cavern, which was a morph land, which was like a colorless but not very effective. The new land called Branch of Vitu-Gazi, something like this. Basically, you morph it, you draw a card. If it's in the early game, you just play the land. If it's in the mid game to late game, you draw the card. You play it for free, and then whenever you need colored pips, you can put 3 mana into it, and when it flips, it gives you 2 colored mana and itself a colorless mana. So you can turn 3 colorless mana to 2 blue pips, for example, to cast the Hullbreaker or the Teferi or something.
Oh, so this actually this is really cool. So this you play as a creature for free with your commander, and then you flip it, and then you add 2 mana. Or you have to you have to pay 3 mana to flip it up.
You
Okay,
play 3 colorless, and it gives you 2 mana of any color, and
Uh-huh.
and you can tap it itself. So basically, you flip it for free.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. So yeah, it's just basically a good way to filter color if you have a lot of colors
Exactly.
mana into colored mana. Okay, very cool.
And this
Also,
deck needs a lot of color clips, so this is a very good way to get color clips.
Okay.
also plays into that strategy of why you were saying this deck works so well. The mind games.
It's a land.
Yeah, it's like disguise. It's like, well, I know what that is. That's the bird, or it's the exit specialist, and it's like wrong. It was mana all along.
Oh God, can you imagine like you're trying to win and someone flips a branch of Vidugazi and you just have a heart attack into Lex?
Man, this toxic deluge got a lot worse when I didn't hit that land.
Yeah, exactly.
So
So I guess we went over this a bit, but I was gonna ask how it functioned in the early game, but we went over that. Yeah, Sammer, if you want to take over how it functions in the mid game.
I think we actually went into how it functions in the early mid game and what the late game plan was actually very effectively. My question is more about like when we say late game, how is this dealing with like turn like 7-8 games where like it's like mid range hell? How's your game plan during mid range?
It's very similar to most blue black decks. You want to tutor for your card advantage, usually.
Yeah.
Mostly Ristic Study, and you wanna, for example, in the finals game, I had a Wandering, Seedborn Muse, Minamo.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Jeez. Okay.
And a Final Word Phantom. So every turn I could play whatever I want.
I threw up a little in my mouth.
Yeah. so basically you want to tutor for your card advantage. Also, the Worthy Tutor is an amazing card in our deck. It tutors for all of our winning cons. It tutors for our best morphs, and we have like I think 4, 5, 6 tutors in this deck to get whatever we want. Also, there's something I really want to emphasize on, which is the Elven Chorus. This is one of my favorite cards in the deck.
Yeah, so we're gonna ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Elven Chorus is, since you are a very creature-heavy deck, I wanted to imagine a scenario where like we have turn 1 Llanowar Elf, turn 2 somehow Commander and a Morph. You play a turn 3 Elven Chorus. You put 4 mana, and now you have like creatures that can give you 3 or 4 mana colored, you know? And with the Elven Chorus, we have 30 creatures. You can play your Morphed from Elven Colors. You can play any creature you want from Elven Colors. We have like 4 flash creatures. So this thing is so good in this deck. It's a card advantage. It's so much mana. And just remember, this deck needs a lot of mana. Like you have Teferi 5 mana, Heartbreaker 7 mana. Your Morphs flip for 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. You need the mana. So Seedborn, Elven Chorus, all of these are a really big help to win the game. I was really debating putting the Cryptolithrite instead of Elven Chorus, but I'm still not sure which one is better, because the Elven Chorus gives us the advantage to get morphs out of our deck and creatures.
Yeah, and it's good because... Go ahead.
This fills 2 roles. This is a Mystic Forge and a Cryptolithrite. So you're saving yourself 2 spots.
Exactly.
Yeah, like I can imagine this gets really out of hand when you have like Final Word Phantom, then you have like fetch lands and stuff, and like Kadena's drawing you cards. Like there's a lot more like top deck manipulation than you would think that goes into this.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
But again, just remember this is our perfect scenario at turn 4 or 5.
Right.
We have to get there. And this is one of the reasons that I made a few changes to this tournament, which is take out some of the very what's the word?
Niche.
not niche, like counter spells that work on specific things. I forgot the word exactly, and I put in
Oh.
Arcane Denial and Mana Drain. Like I
I
want to
was
be
going
able
to talk
to,
about Arcane.
yeah,
Yeah.
I want to be able to hit everything. Like I want to stop those Tivits, Atraxas,
Oxides,
all
Grand
of them.
Abolishers. Yeah.
I don't want to have a problem that I cannot deal with for 2 mana. I don't care if he draws 2 cards. Like, drawing a card for me is I'm very happy to draw a card. I have a Fairy Mastermind which can also work with this card.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
fine for me.
Very
So as long as we can delay the game to turn 4, 5, 6, this deck is a very happy deck.
Because who's gonna kill your like 2/2 face down morph ever? Right? Almost like right.
No one.
Yeah.
Trust me, no one.
And if you have like 2 or 3 of them on the board, how the hell is anyone gonna know which is the good one? Like one of them's a land. like the only thing I can think of that would really throw a wrench in things is maybe like a board wipe that at the wrong point of time for you.
Yeah, exactly. But board wipes and cEDH are very rare.
Yeah.
And our deck is ready to deal with board wipes. Like we have a lot of counter spells. Our we have like I think 1 or 2 counter spells in our morphs. And usually, like if that happens, if everyone agrees to let the board wipe go through and kill your board, then you have to try to win second or third guy. Like you have to let them fight each other for 1 or 2 turns, and then you can try to go for it. You have to lay low.
So this falls into the same pattern as like an Animar, where like normally people don't board wipe an Animar, but when they do, obviously it takes them like 4 or 5 turns to get back into it. You kind of follow the same pattern of, yeah, board wipes, I have a lot of interaction for them, but if it happens, I am taking like a 3-turn break, basically.
Yes, if you don't have any card advantage.
Yeah.
Yes. If you tutored for a Rajjix or something, One Ring, you are very good. And this is something I usually look for in my opening hand, which is have a tutor for a card advantage. If not, if I have a Mana Crypt Talisman and a land or something, I'm going to have a turn 2 commander, fine. But my most optimal starting hand is tutor, Mana Advantage. Get a Rajjix, get a Mystic, get my it's like every blue deck in this meta. Right. You want to have your card advantage, and then you try to assemble your win slowly.
Yeah. Let's maybe take a bit of a closer look at some of these morph creatures, because some of these they're interesting. Like I don't understand why they're in. So sure. Survivalist, I completely understand. This is a morph creature that when it's turned up, it destroys an artifact enchantment. That makes complete sense. If someone's trying to win with Underworld Breach, or they have a really annoying
Rajjix studies,
Rajjix
study, whatever.
Yeah,
you can.
Yeah, stacks pieces sometimes. I'm sure, like a stasis or something weird you want to get rid of. And there's Den Protector, which is like an Eternal Witness, but it has morph.
The Den Protector is extremely good if you have free spells. So, for example, you're fighting Fierce Guardianship. Bring back the Fierce Guardianship, Fierce Guardianship again.
Yeah.
Instant speed, which is really good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. What other uses does this have that you commonly do with Den Protector besides fighting on the stack?
Get back your win cons, get back your tutors. It's a very useful card. And just remember, all of our morphs are like for what they do. The mana cost is not the best, right?
Yeah.
You can Noxious Revival for 1. And for example, get back the card, not to your hand, but to your top, fine. Eternal Witness is 3 mana. This is 2 mana, fine. But remember that Den Protector draws you a card.
Yeah, with Kadena, yeah.
Yeah. So most of the morphs, not all of them, but for example, Den Protector does its job for a good amount of mana, for like a good rate.
Yeah.
But for example, the Kadena Silencer, for example, is 2 mana. Stifle is 1 mana. So the abilities are a bit overcosted, most of them, but they are board presence and they draw you cards. So keep that in mind whenever you think about the morphs.
Okay.
So like I was thinking this was like Animar, but this is sort of like Animar with what's the madness Anya. This is sort of like Animar Anya, where you're running sort of like these slightly worse creatures because you're going to gain an additional advantage from these cards.
Exactly.
So we can't just look at these creatures based on stats. We also have to think of we should add a line of text on these that play your morph for free, draw a card.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's replace itself. This is a immediate cycle. That's what makes this better than the others.
Exactly. And that's why you want to get Kadena on the board as soon as possible to start building this advantage.
Otherwise, these are just bad creatures.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're very high in the mana cost department. Yeah, because you have to pay. Without Kadena, you pay 3, and then to turn it up, it would be another 2, so it'd be like 5 mana. It's not that great.
Exactly.
So I'm looking at Exit Specialist here. It's just a bounce creature, so when it's turn face up, you return another creature to its owner's hand. Does this combo at all?
No, this is basically to stop Grand Abolishers, to bounce the dark side if someone is gonna copy it.
Right.
Basically like this. It can save your own creatures, but usually you don't want to do that. Usually.
Right.
But it can save your Hullbreaker from being killed. Some
weird edge scenarios.
Yeah.
Okay, so we looked at Kadena's Silencer. It's going to counter. That's actually really cool. It counters all abilities people control. What's the most common?
This is one of my favorite. This is one of my favorite.
Tell us about this.
Counter spells. Let's say this is Tassa, Dockside, Pivot, Atraxa, what's it called? The Kark, the one that copies
spells.
All the copy triggers, all the flips.
I have stopped multiple Tassa wins. Like imagine Tassa Demonic. Yes, go ahead. Silence. Sure, go ahead. Exile the deck. Kadena Silencer.
No. How many times have you gotten that off?
Like 3 times in my local at Jazz.
Oh no!
It's just so cool. After one time, yeah.
Are people
going
after
one time?
So the
morph.
Yeah, the Silumgar Assassin is a 3 mana removal, but it is it's basically a meta call. Kinan, Timna, Najila.
Yeah,
most of these decks have a very important 2-power commander, and just drawing a card and killing a commander for 3 mana is
good.
I'm happy.
I'm happy. It kills Sisay. It kills Grand Abolisher, like you said.
Yeah, Grand Abolisher. Like all of these very important creatures in this meta, where creatures matter more. Silumgar Assassin is just very nice. And thing is, he's not optimal. Like I would rather have Abrupt Decay, for example.
Right.
But you kind of need a density of morphs to make your commander do its job.
Yeah. Because like once it gets rolling, I imagine this is like you love. This card's only bad like in the early game when like you haven't set up your commander, when you haven't established anything. Once you get past that point, a lot of these cards become so much better because they're free. And they draw you cards, and they're removal.
Exactly.
So it's like a triple dip. So I mean, like, or at least a double dip.
And this is something where I will remind me to talk about it after we finish the morphs, which is this is a deck where mulligans are very important.
Yes, yeah, we can talk about that at the end. Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay,
right, so the next one. Hey, go ahead.
I was just gonna say Stratus Dancer, but yeah, you got it.
Stratus Dancer is probably the most efficient one. It's 2 mana counter any instant or sorcery, which is like the cost of Arcane Denial, which is not the same, but it's still a creature that drew you a card and can counter any instant sorcery, ad nauseums, whatever it is. Like again, like someone silences. Okay, sure, go ahead. You're gonna ad nauseam next, counter it. It's very cheap, and that's the nice thing about it. It's 2 mana, right? The next one is not amazing, but again, if you play with the plan that you wanna play a morph and pass, keep your mana. Void Mage Apprentice is a 4 mana counter any spell.
Right.
It's 4 mana, but still a morph that drew you a card that you can keep for later on.
Real quick, how do these two creatures, Void Mage and Shadow Stancer, how does that compare to Glennet Lendra in your eyes? Because they're a little similar. Glennet Lendra Archmage. So that's like a 4 mana creature, has persist, you pay a blue, you counter target non-creature spell. They're comparable, but I feel like maybe in your deck, because these are morphs and they draw you cards, they outclass.
Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's missing that key line of text to
draw a card.
Yeah.
I mean, Glenendra is a very nice card. I love creatures that can counter spells like the 2 mana card, the Malevolent Hermit. It's a really nice card that I love to play. Yeah. But this is a morph deck. We don't want to get cards that do the same job as morphs without them drawing us cards. That's basically the way we want to do it.
Not to mention, every morph adds to the mind game of what is this one going to be.
Yeah.
You got to remember, every morph makes you go,
yeah.
What is this one?
That is something that my friends in the LGS always say. This guy always has it. Like, they're trying to Tasta. I have the silencer, like, and they're like, this guy always has the correct morph, which is mind games, right? Like, if they want to go for an under breach, I have 2 morphs that destroy enchantments and artifacts. So it's like, do I want to go for an under reach against 2 morphs that are sitting on the table? Do I want to go for Tassa with a Kadena silencer? It's just a very amazing mind game that you can exert on your opponents, and they can never know.
Yeah, so everyone else is playing Magic, and you're over here playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, you have like 10
exactly.
trump cards.
I think it gets even worse when you go, okay, a worst thing that he does is he counters the spell. I'm gonna play I'm gonna play Red Blast targeting Kadena. I'm gonna flip over this next card, Willbender.
Yeah.
Willbender. Oh god.
I thought A, B, and C were the options, but apparently there is also D.
Which is so much worse. Yeah, tell us about Willbender. Like, have you gotten any like really crazy things that you were able to pull off?
Basically, your Teferi win is uncounterable, except for 1 card or 2 cards. Touch of the Spirit Realm and Otawara.
What's the Teferi win?
You play Teferi and then you Tassa, basically.
You're okay, right. Okay, you're with your
Teferi Tassa
ability. Yeah. Okay.
There's nothing
your
that
mage
can stop
polisher.
Yeah, mage of, exactly. There's nothing that can stop that except the Otawara and the Touch of the Spirit Realm. I think, or like the Turtle, but these are like very rare cards, like 3 cards.
Yeah.
Willbender, you want to bounce it? Nah. But bounce something else.
Right. Let me my Willbender.
Yeah. Exactly. So Willbender is like a spell skite that's very annoying, that can stacks the table like in a not stacks. It's like it's a deflecting swat, man. It's just so good, right? It's a deflecting swat on a creature that draws you a card. It's only 2 mana to cast it, to morph it, and it's a very good protection. Yeah, it's a deflecting swat, and it's permanently on your table, which is you probably guys have not seen like Kadena being played, but having Kadena with like 3 morphs, you feel like you're the king on the sport. You know everything, they know nothing. You know.
I'll let you guys in on a fun fact. So when Commander 19 came out, I bought all these decks for my playgroup. We literally bought 4 of each, so everybody had these decks. And naturally, some people drew more strategies than others. I had one friend who built the Morph deck. This was like the first deck that I ever just thought, maybe I should just run Contamination and Blood Moon in a deck. Like,
Oh, God.
like it needs mana. Like I never thought about maybe we should burn down the field and just like pretend it doesn't exist. But that deck made me go, we can commit war crimes now. So like for me, like when I saw this deck, like just so you know, it's so funny. I went against this deck in a league the week before you won. So when you won, I was like, is it the same guy? And I was like, it's not. And I was like, oh no, the strategy is growing.
It is.
Because then you get like, this other morph, Natuku Vigilante, not even on my radar.
What does that do?
It's the same one as the Ionox Survivalist. Destroy artifact or enchantment.
Oh, it's this one down here. Okay.
Same one, yeah.
So I would think like Inox Survivalist, flip face up, I can go for a breach line.
But there's another one.
Yeah, God.
We've had one naturalize. How about a second?
Yeah, and it's like not counterable or anything. It kind of just happens.
Exactly. So this is the Vigilante. The next one is the Quainor. Now the Quainor is a very basic copy instant or sorcery that anyone casts. So ad nauseams, counter spells, intuitions.
Yeah. Oh God.
Whatever you want to copy. Plus, if you have a lot of mana, you can turn him face down for 5 mana and then turn it face up again.
Question.
Yeah.
Isn't this just like a one card set, a one card win basically with Tainted Pact?
Yes.
Oh, whoa.
It's 7 mana though, which is something not easy to have in the early game, but in the later game, it is a Tainted Pact win.
You can straight up just hold up 5 mana and just do this during someone's end phase and just
exactly.
Wait. But don't you need a flash? Wouldn't you need a flash out Thoracle, or how does it go?
You just go down till you have 2 cards left, and you just draw for your turn, and then you play Thoracle with 1 card left in library with this face up.
Oh, so I get it. Yeah. Yeah.
First Tainted Pact's looking for Thoracle, second Tainted Pact's looking for the win.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, you have to go down to your last card, and then you play Thoracle at sorcery speed, but that's still a win. Yeah.
Yeah, but basically, if you have your Kadena and you have this guy and you have Tassa, that's 4 blue pips. So you can go down to your 4th or 3rd last card, find something nice maybe down there, and then just play Tassa on your
free
main
counter
phase.
spells, something. Yeah. Okay.
It's basically what's that Grixis mage that lets you flashback? I never remember its name. Yeah, Ka0s. It's basically a Ka0s combo. This deck is just so like, why, man? Why did you have to bring this out into the open? The more I look at it, the more I go, I gotta build this because I can actually major damage.
You have to.
Obviously, Seedborn, because it just works.
Seedborn, amazing.
Mana. You need mana as much as you can. Teferi is our only silence, and it's a flash speed creatures. Now this guy is my MVP. I don't care what anyone says. This guy is the MVP of the deck. It's a 2 mana draw a card, become a Tivit, become an Atraxa, become let's say you already countered this spell with the Void Mage Apprentice. You 2 mana, turn it as the Void Mage Apprentice, counter some other spell. On your turn, first turn it back face down. You can do whatever you want with it again.
Which are you talking about? Visu and Shapeshifter, right?
Yeah, the Shapeshifter is the best card in the deck. I usually in the early game, if I get it out, become an Esper Sentinel, become a Lothal, become a Fairy Mastermind.
Because you can just because it doesn't matter that you get something that's only good in the early game because you turn it into whatever you want later. It doesn't matter.
Exactly. On your upkeep, you can decide: do I still want it as a Lothal? Meh, no. Turn it back face down. Keep it as a surprise for whatever you want to do. And
you just have to pay 2 mana to flip it.
Yeah.
2
mana is nothing. To mana like it's a copy anything. Now the problem is you don't get the ETB, which is fine. Sometimes if I'm desperate, I pay 5 mana for it to get an ETB. If it's something
Dockside,
exactly.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah. Dockside, easy Tivit, easy. Oh, did you play a Niv Mizzet? Yeah, Niv Mizzet.
I have actually won like every single time I play against a Tivit. I never counter it. Never. If I have a shapeshifter, like I have in my deck, three what do you call them? 3 copies: Imposter Mech, Phyrexian Metamorph, and my shapeshifter. Right, so I have a high chance of getting one of them. Usually, if I tutor, I tutor for my shapeshifter because it's so flexible. It's so flexible. You want ATB, pay for it. It's fine. If not, you want a Tivit. That's my Tivit. I've actually beat down Tivits with my base movement shapeshifter, which is very funny.
Oh god!
What's wrong, man? Obviously, Hullbreaker Horror. We know what that does. That is the big bad boogeyman. That got released in a structure deck and went infinite in the deck.
Oh my god! Oh, like Soul Ring and something silly.
Yeah, they had Chalice. They had the multi-kicker Chalice and Soul Ring in the deck with it.
Oh no!
0 mana, bring back Soul Ring. Soul Ring pays for Soul Ring. And I loved it because they were like, well, I mean, like that doesn't really go infinite. I'm like, the commander does something every time a horror enters the battlefield. They're like, oh.
Yeah,
we broke the deck.
That's a problem. That's a problem.
Soulbreaker doesn't even eat the full ham sandwich. They just need the bread.
What about so you're just on Hullbreaker Horror. What about Tidespout?
Too expensive. It's 8 mana and
can be countered.
I don't need I don't need 2 7 8 mana things to do the same thing. Like,
right. Yeah,
if I was a turbos thing, if I was more fast, maybe I would want 2 instead of 1. But I want the game to go late, and if I usually go late, I would either draw into tutors or draw into Hullbreaker,
right,
to win the game.
Because you're not like Kinnan, where you're making like a bunch of mana. You're making enough to do what you need, but like your commander doesn't ramp you or anything like that. Okay.
Exactly. I can be a Kinnan with my shapeshifter, but I'm not the Kinnan.
So when I'm like looking at your sorceries, and then I'm looking at your instants, and then I look at your artifacts, enchantments, I notice like you don't actually have a lot of board wipes. Is that because like you really need your creatures out and you don't see a scenario where you would rather kill everything?
Board wipes, I don't know. No, please don't mention board wipes to Kadena. This is very bad. There's actually a creature that is a morph and a board wipe, but you would never want to do that. It's a very sad sight to have. Like if you're in a game where you don't have board presence, then you should probably not have any chance to win the game. It's going to be very hard.
You ever thought of an Ixodron?
I did, but it's an EDH thing.
Yeah,
it's an EDH.
Doesn't quite make the translate.
Yeah, it is very cute though that you can turn back your morphs down to use them again. But in this situation, it's a situation where you used your morphs. With like morphs, using your morphs costs a lot of mana, and then you play your Exodron for 5 mana, I think, and then you want to use your morphs again. That's like 20-30 mana, which is you're dreaming of having that much mana in a cEDH game.
Yeah.
Also, this time they don't come with that handy dandy draw card.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, they don't draw because they're already on the battlefield. How are you feeling about offer?
About Arcane.
About?
How do you feel about an offer you can't refuse? How's that been for you?
Sad to use it in the early game, but I'm happy to stop wins. Anything that can stop wins, I'm happy with it. One thing to note, I was not happy with usually I'm not happy with the Imperial Seals, but with our commander we can actually get the card instantly, which is very nice. It's like a demonic tutor.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So you're on Imperial
Uh,
and you're on Vamp, I imagine. Yep, you're on Vamp Tutor as well.
Also, Diabolic Intent is amazing. Use your morph, sack it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
like these are very good. Most of our instances are to stop wins. We need to stop
Right.
wins for sure. And then in the previous version of the deck, I did not have the Opal, no Cage, and no Imposter Mark. But I was like, I need anything to boost my mana potential in the early game. So I
Mhm.
want to add the Opal, and I removed, I think, Phantasmal Image to put the Imposter Mark for more artifacts. And we forgot to talk about one of the most important parts of my deck, which is the little bit of stack that I have.
Mhm.
Karn won me the 2 games out of 3 in the Swiss
In Pantheon?
because just putting a Karn against I was in a game against Blue Farm, some deck with Dockside in it, and Kinnan.
Ah, yeah.
Everyone was shut down. Like I shut them down for 3 turns. I killed 2 mana crypts and a Mox Opal,
Oh my
and
god.
then Karn died because they all agreed that they need to kill Karn. But killing Karn is hard. Like he has the first time we played 6
Yeah.
Mhm.
6 loyalty, and I'm a creature deck.
You
So
block.
getting through to Karn is hard, and Karn is just amazing. Like 2 games won just because of Karn shows you how much people rely nowadays on artifacts and on docksides. And my deck hates dockside. I don't want to see dockside. Please, like it's the card I hate the most in cEDH because it's just so much power and 2 mana, and the deck hates early power and early wins. So whatever
Right.
I can do to stop that needs to go into my deck.
Yeah, so I see you're
Yeah.
on Manglehorn as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Gonna say Karn is like Mike Tyson. You know, everybody's got a plan until the Karn comes down. Like I know, I was like looking at Karn and Mangohor when he was asking when we were asking about offer. And I'm like, I don't think the man cares. I think you kind of like yeah, you know what? I'll give you 2 useless treasures. You tried to get rid of the Karn with a removal spell, get a treasure instead, or you tried to pop this Megahorn, get 2 treasures. They're tapped. You can have them next
Exactly.
turn.
Exactly.
Like you're also running Arcane Denial for the same concept of you don't mind if they go next turn. You just want to be able to make it go around another turn.
That's very important. I just want to get to my turn, untap, have mana, let you go for it again. Until I'm ready to flash in Hullbreaker, Teferi, or have my morph ready to deal with whatever I want to deal with, basically.
Mhm.
And as long as we delay the game, we have a lot of way to wins. Not a lot of ways, but very good ways to win. Mnemonic Betrayal is an MVP. Hullbreaker, Teferi, best ways to win in blue, basically. Blue-black.
Yeah, and just you do the Torkel. Okay. But yeah, so I saw the cage. That's basically just to stop like Breach and Kinnan, Sisay also. Trying to think what else it hits.
Magda Lions.
Oh yeah, Magda. It's going to stop any sort of green creature tutor like Green Suns or something.
I had Finale in my deck. Finale is really good to get, let's say, a Seedborn or a Gilded Drake, something to deal, but it's not amazing. I also had Green Sun Zenith to get a Seedborn, but I was like, that's not very worth it. It is very good, but just a 1 mana artifact to stop all of these decks is better than having to spend all that mana on a tutor
that might not resolve. Right.
Exactly.
Also, with your deck being so morph centric, your creature tutors don't hit exactly what you want. Like there's only 3 creatures that you want, like 4 creatures that you want out of your deck, and it's like for 4 creatures, why run an 1 green tutor when you can just run a stacks piece and again slow down the game, which is already your plan. You want it slower.
Exactly, because when I had the Green Sun Zenith, I didn't have Seedborn Muse. I only had Manglehorn. I was like, is it worth it to have a Green Sun Dance just for Manglehorn? That's not the way. And Finale was a way to get my Tasa into the game, but spending 4 mana for a Tasa and then 2 or 1 mana for the other combo and have protection is not something my deck that is able to do without like copying a Dockside or having an amazing start with Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, Talisman, for example.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's not average.
Yeah. So having the Cage and Karn are probably my best 2 additions to this deck, from the Mox Smashers to the Pantheon.
Okay.
Struggle against, man. Like,
yeah, I'm looking at your
just
artifacts. Oh yeah, we need to talk about. Before we get to that, let's really quick. Do you have any tips for like newer players, people that are trying to pick up Kadena for the first time?
The deck is a bit tricky to play because it's not played the same way as other decks.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be. It's like, I always think about it as a creature Talion. So Talion wants the game to go late, and he draws cards from people casting spells.
Yeah,
we draw cards by going late by playing our own creatures.
Mm-hmm.
We want to delay the game, but we don't want to be the primary police in the game. Same as Talion. Talion does not want to interact with everything. He wants to interact at the very correct time. We have the advantage to interact at uninteractable times. We can interact under silences, under whatever we want.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to be patient. And you have to have the correct vocabulary. For example, tell people, I cannot interact with this spell, for example. Don't say, I cannot interact. Let them know that if they interact, you will back them up later on. You want people to go first, right? You want them to spend their counter spells. You want them to spend their fuel, their power, while you sit back and interact at the last moment, which is very important because, again, our deck is not turbo. We want to go slowly, let them slowly fight each other while we help this guy a bit, help that guy a bit, until we get our uncounterable wins, let's say.
Yeah.
So be patient. Don't think that the deck is the same as playing Blue Farm or Kinnons or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It is slow. Build your board. Be ready. Be ready for whatever the enemy does. And this deck can do it, for sure.
Okay. Go ahead, Samurai. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's basically, if we were to go off the spectrum of turbo, mid-range, control, and stacks, this is a little bit stacksy, but it's like 99% control. You're trying to pick your spot. And whereas mid-range is looking to get advantage, you're looking to stop losses.
Exactly.
Because you do have like an inevitability with your deck.
Very true. As long as you have 2 or 3 morphs on the board, you should feel very safe. If they are the good morphs, let's say. If they're not the land. If you have like a 1 counter spell in your hand, if you have destroy artifact or enchantment, and you have a counter spell on the battlefield, most of the time you're not gonna lose when your turn comes back. If you have a Rhystic Study or something that's also generating value for you, it's very, very, very hard for you to lose. I'm gonna give you just like a example. For example, the semifinals and the finals were 2 hours and a half each.
Jeez.
And when the game goes that long, you are winning as a Kadena. I was able, in the finals, I was able to fight 3 players. At a certain point, I had 3 Hullbreaker Horrors with the Vesuvian Shapeshifter and the Metamorph. Like game, like just get to the late game.
Yeah.
With the late game, Kadena, it's very hard for you to lose. The problem is getting to the late game. I don't care about Blue Farm. I don't care about anyone else. Just get me to the late game. I will have like a 50% chance to win, which is very high for a
Any deck, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have figured out the winning strategy against this deck. It's simple.
Good.
Jam it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like we covered kind of the weakness is if people get under you with like a quick dockside, a lot of fast mana, and they're able to
Exactly.
out-tempo you. Roxai, I imagine, would be a big weakness if Blue Farm gets a really good start.
Yeah, for example, just to be like, I'm basing my experience on, like, I don't have much cEDH tournament experience as in cEDH, but I play a lot of in my LGS, which is right now is very high level. It's not always 10 over 10 cEDH decks, but they are very good decks. But in the 2 tournaments that I played with this deck, the Ka0s one that I won in the finals, for example, we were me, Blue Farm, something else, also with Blue and Roxai, and turn 2-3, we all fought Roxai to stop his ad nauseum, and after we stopped the turbo deck, I was able to win fighting the others. But if they were not there to help me fight the Roxai, the deck would lose in turn 4. So imagine if there was no other blue player and there was like another Roxai going for the turbo win after that other Roxai, the game would be over. So that's why I said in the beginning, this deck is very good in this low meta.
Yeah.
If it becomes a fast meta again, you're gonna have some problems.
So basically, when someone gets in the car, the snake got to get out of the road.
Exactly.
Right.
So from what you've talked about, I feel like the cards that you mostly don't like is obviously Dockside is something that you struggle against in the early game, and then obviously board wipes.
Yeah.
The thing is, board wipes are not very existent in the meta. Like,
yeah, I was gonna say they're gone.
Maybe one Toxic Deluge and the Blue Farm, maybe.
Yeah.
Right? But the Dockside is just a very stupid creature. Like it's just 2 mana, 2 mana, make 8 mana, and then Chain of Vaporite, make 8 mana again, and then dance around it, make 8 mana again, which is
Like
something.
yeah,
it's like why is it something in this meta?
And it's so hard for you because like you talked about like turn 2, your plan is to play your commander, play a morph. That means you're tapped down. Turn 3, you're playing a morph and maybe you're holding up mana, but like turn 2 is when a Dockside can come down. And
exactly,
it usually does. Yeah,
everyone is playing artifacts, and if the Dockside player is lucky and there's 6 artifacts on turn 2-3, the game is over, right? Dockside ad nauseum, and the game is over, whatever. But this is one of the reasons I was wondering if I should play like a Praetor's Grasp, play my own Dockside, so I can feel proud of myself playing a Dockside, but it's just I would rather fight my own fights, with my morphs, with my own kin, not with a
dirty pirate.
Yeah, dirty pirate, exactly.
I mean, you've already got your Dockside in your clones and in your Mid Betrayal. If Dockside's land, if you were having to spend 3 mana on turn 2 to exile someone's Dockside, you have probably had a terrible game. You are
exactly.
a mold to like 3.
Yeah,
that's literally you going like mold to 3. I top deck the Praetor's Grasp. I guess let's go.
Exactly. Like if my deck was trying to win faster, I would probably get the Praetor's Grasp, get the Dockside, get a lot of mana, and try to win. But with our plan, sure, it's very nice to have mana, but I would rather like there is one card that I'm thinking about cutting to add like 1 or 2 cards. I want to cut the Bloom Tender. It's very susceptible to unless you have it on turn 1 with Mox something or a Mana Crypt, it's very slow. It does give 3 mana, which is amazing. And like if you have your commander and you have Bloom Tender, that's 3 mana. But it's within a word of Orcish Bowmaster. And
they're shooting that first.
I would rather have for example, a Sylvan library instead of Bloom Tender.
Sylvan sounds good. Have you tried Clever Impersonator?
Yeah, I was thinking about it, but it's my deck is already super mana hungry. I want
know,
something
but taking a Smothering Tithe.
Sadly, there is not much Smothering Tithe nowadays. It's a bit
Steel
rare.
enchantment.
Steel
Yeah.
enchantment, that could be interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems like a better, like, 1-to-1 try out Sylvan or try out Steel enchantment. Just if the meta is not going to speed up and it's just going to keep grinding, might as well take away people's advantage engines. I say from personal experience as a Ragavan player, 3 Rhystic Studies will normally win you a game.
What about Kinnan instead of Bloom Tender? I guess you don't have as many rocks, maybe, or
the flips are awful.
Yeah, thing is, the earlier version of this deck had Kinnan, Basalt, and Thrasios.
Okay, Thrasios too, yeah.
But this deck does not assemble the 3 of them very easily.
Right, yeah. That makes
unless you're
sense.
playing all the green tutors, and it does not play into our plan.
Isn't there like morph mana dorks too? I think there's like one or two.
I don't think so.
No, not good ones.
Not good ones.
In Tamir, there's combos in Tamir for them, but in Sultai you can't run the good ones because like they weren't really like Sultai. Like when they were doing cons for Sultai, they were like, well, we need a Delve to be their main mechanic, and we want morph to sort of be a Tamir mechanic. So like a lot of the morphs are like green, red, and blue.
Yeah.
So it's like, one of those colors is not helpful in this deck.
No.
Oh man, that Coveted Falcon, man. I think that is like, that idea
really
of
funny.
just give it to play. Even better, what you can do is just give it to someone and kill that player.
They go to exile though.
Yeah, they go to exile. That's a problem.
They go to exile. Because you control the effect. So they go to exile.
For example, like three days ago, I was playing in a league online, and one guy was trying to win at 7 HP. So it was time. So either he wins or we draw. And I was like, take all of my permanents. There's an Orcish Bowmaster. Kill him right now. So we had like 20 damage on the stack. He died. We drew the game. Coveted Falcon is.
Oh my gosh! I just realized that is so funny to be like, I'm gonna give you the Bowmaster. I'll draw 20 cards. Kill that guy.
Exactly.
There's like coveted Adnos almost in your deck. Like as long as it gets late into the game, that's pretty funny.
Dude, you put a hit out on someone, man. What the heck?
It's a very weird creature that no one expects. Like you expect a counter spell, but you do not expect a draw 20, right? A draw 15. Something very funny that the wild growth you can actually give it to someone and it doesn't change ownership. Let's say, like, which is very.
It doesn't get unattached.
Exactly.
Yeah. Has there been any sort of? Have you ever been able to give something that was actively bad for someone? Like, let's say they're at 4 life, you give them your 1 ring and it kills them.
Not yet.
That before?
Not yet. Not yet.
No, okay.
Not yet.
On the list.
I'm not sure if we're gonna talk about things that players might want to think about, but there is a creature that I love playing in this deck.
Yeah.
Which is in the considering down there. It's called Grazilax. This deck is Timna plus, I don't know. It's an amazing creature, but it's a bit slow. A little bit slow. It's like so imagine you have like a morph or two that are already flipped. Okay, so you use the morphs. You play Grazilax, you attack with them. So the players have a choice. Let the creatures hit them and you draw cards, or they block them, you bounce them back to your hand and you play them again as morphs. And you draw a card. Which is something like, this creature is amazing, but it's a little bit slow for cEDH.
Yeah.
I've tried him
Yes.
out in Malcolm Gaddis, and he always seems like he'd be such a house. It's like you always go like, but then I'd bounce it back, and or I draw a card, so like there's no negative, and then it's like you get to him in hand, and you're like, 3 mana is cool and all, but I can play this instead.
Yeah.
The 2 blue pips are a bit annoying for it.
Rough. Yeah.
He never gets out. It's like you always think like, I'll play him next turn. He's a next turn creature.
Yeah. That's that 100% that type of card. It's like very low on tempo because it's so hard to cast and such a high mana cost relatively to like a lot of the other things in cEDH.
Mm-hmm. Does so little comparatively to some of the other cards in that slot, and then you just like he's always the next turn, and you always go like, well, what if I need to rebuild? And it's like, well, if you need to rebuild, you have probably been countered, or your board's been wiped. And I'll tell you right now, if your board's been wiped, Grazilex no longer matters.
Yeah, you don't get the question. When you're cloning a morph, how do you like show the table like which one it was? You know what I mean? Like if you're cloning a face down creature, you can flip it up, right? Like so, like let's say
no,
you can't.
No.
Okay,
no.
It's just so if you try to Phyrexian Metamorph a face down Inox Survivalist, it's just a 2/2.
2/2.
Yeah.
Okay, I understood.
I think it's a nameless, colorless 2/2. I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Have you thought? There's. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, Morph is just one of those things that like so many things you think would work with it, but so many things don't, and so many things you think wouldn't work with it, and they do. I think the best part about Morph is again the mind game of just like that they're always gonna go to like the worst case scenario for them, and they're always gonna think it's the one thing that I don't want. It's gonna be the counter, right? And then it never is. It's always like the enchantment popper, the target switcher.
Well, yeah, I mean, out of these morphs, like if you even have like say 2, the chances of having a morph on the board that interacts with someone trying to win the game is so high because people are never just like, I mean, usually unless it's a turbo deck, they're never just like throwing out their win con. It's usually start with an abolisher or like start with the silence and then so like if they silence and you're like, okay, that's fine, and then they resolve a breach, you have your Inox Survival. So if you have the other one that destroys artifact enchantment, or if you have the one that stops counter spell, it stops instant sorceries, you just play that one. So like, yeah, the more I think about it, the more I'm seeing that like the chances that you have something to stop someone is very very high. Yeah,
I just remembered Kadena's silencer also stops a storm trigger.
Oh shit.
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, I'd be so mad, dude, if that happened to me.
Like, have you done it yet?
Yeah.
Have you been like, oh my god, this absolute savage of a man.
What was the storm trigger? What was the game?
Just one thing to about your point. The morphs are very good because you know them, right? Like what's down there, and you decide where to interact. And this is why I was saying it's very important to, let's say, twist your words in a good way. Is that if someone casts a silence and he's gonna add NOS, and you have a counter spell in your morphs, you tell the players, I cannot interact with the silence, right? And they are forced to interact with the silence. And if they do not have an interaction, you are still safe. Yeah. Because you know what's down there. If you have an Arcane Denial, save it. You don't care. And the combination of a lot of counter spells in your hand and a lot of interaction on the board that you can use at any time is the most important part of this deck. Keep your interactions to the last point, and you will do really good on with Kadena.
I would say like playing with you is like playing poker, where you're playing. I have to play my cards face up, and you get to play. Every time you add a card, it's face down, and I'm like, I think this is a winning hand, and you're like, you are free to think that.
5 aces.
Yeah.
All face
Yeah,
down.
it's like, is it 5 aces or is it like a 2 and a 3 and a 7 and a 6? Like,
just for example, just like in the finals, there was one guy. Like I was going for the win. I had infinite mana, infinite everything, and one guy was like, "I can stop you, my man," and I was like, "Bro, I don't want to be mean, but you cannot stop. You cannot stop me." And I knew what he had. He's a white deck. He has Angel's Grace. I was like, "No, I can stop you, bro." I was like, and he's like, I'm gonna call a judge. I was like, sure. He went to the judge and he came back like 2 minutes. He's like, I'm gonna cast Angel's Grace. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna flip the Stratus Dancer. I was like, GG. So even when players think that they have a split second or something that's uncomfortable, you have morphs. It's amazing. It's such
only
a
one
cool
thing
deck.
stops a morph.
What?
Humility.
Yeah.
What
Humility gets them.
Who? Humility. Yeah. That's
humility.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, every game that I've seen a humility touchdown has not been a fun game for everybody who isn't a humility player. So,
Yeah, for
you know,
sure.
just
guys.
remember, folks, humility, it closes out games, guys. It really
Indeed.
does.
Yeah.
So anything else we need to know about your deck? Like, how was the Pantheon finals? Like, how was Pantheon in general? Like, how was the tournament for you?
I was actually surprised. So the first Mox Masters, I did not do as well. I won a game and at time, like last turn. I threw a second game and then I withdrew or something. So I was like, this deck can only win on very late turns, and I was not really sure about playing it again. And then I went to the Ka0s one. I was like, do I play Mizzix to have fun, or do I just try this deck with the new changes? I tried this deck with the new changes, and I was pretty surprised that I won 3 or 2 games. The games were very good. Ka0s, the organizers are actually nice. Judges are very nice.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, like, let me ask you,
Go ahead.
comparatively to like Mox and Pantheon, like, what was like the major differences you felt player experience wise between playing at your locals and playing online?
I would say online is
Besides being
much
able to be
faster.
shocked.
It's faster, you know.
Faster.
Everyone is playing extremely tuned decks with proxies, of course, right? So and the LGS proxies are not allowed, so you don't have Mox Diamonds. Not all of them have Mox Diamonds, LEDs.
Mm-hmm.
So these fast combos are not available, let's say. So Kadena feels better than it should, right?
Yeah.
So when I play in my, like, for example, last Friday, 2 days ago, I got, we play 3 rounds and you get points based on your first, second, third, for example. Usually I get top 3. Like last Friday I got first. And the deck feels strong, and 9 over 10 power. It feels very strong because the game is 2 turns slower. But on Ka0s tournaments or Mox Masters tournaments, you have to have a very good hand. You have to rely on your deck either getting very lucky and getting very fast mana to play your commander and set up the board, or you have to rely on your deck being Dimir and tutoring for Ristic Study. Vamp Tutor, Imperial Seal. Turn 2 Ristic Study or turn 3 Ristic Study is not very good, but at least you have a Ristic Study. And going from there, you try to win the game. But yeah, that's why I was saying mulligans are very important with this deck. And this is something that took me, again, I'm a new cEDH player. I'm not very experienced.
Mm-hmm.
But playing with Kadena, it took me like I don't play much Magic, but it took me like a month or 2 to realize that having a ramp on turn 1 is not efficient. It's not sufficient. You need more. You
Yeah,
need like
agreed.
you need a good hand, because like the difference between having a 5-color deck and a Sultai weird deck is that a 5-color deck can have Esper Sentinel, Lotho, Dockside. You can have so many cards that are good in your mulligans, while my deck, as a Sultai, there's no Esper, no Dockside, no Lothos. You rely on having fast mana and tutoring and Ristic or something, right? So you need to mulligan well, and you need to understand your pod. If your pod has a Roxai, you need Force of Wills, Mindbreak Trap, something.
Interaction. Yeah.
Misstep.
Yeah, something.
Even misstep will normally get the ROG.
Exactly.
Yeah. They go calling the week, misstep, and they're like, okay, my Roger's gone. I can't do that turn.
I just spent mana to kill my Roger. This is not a good turn.
Yeah.
Like, it's my number one favorite thing against Rock deck is mulling for like a mental misstep or some like really early piece of removal, like, or interaction, because like you need it against those decks. And I agree, like that is the one thing that I feel a lot of people don't understand, the difference between like an in-paper tournament that doesn't allow proxies and online tournaments. Online tournaments, just expect them to be the fastest and the most optimal deck it can be.
Yeah.
Because there's no budget on that. In paper, just expect a slower, like just expect some people to be slower so you can get away if you're like, if you have the cards with going like a full turbo build in paper. Because like you're just like, well, not everybody's gonna have a Mox Diamond, and I have a Mox Diamond.
It's a very small difference, but for example, having and not having the dual lands means it's a bit hard to play ad nauseum. Harder to play ad nauseum. It's harder to play Sylvan Library, for example.
Yeah, much harder. For ad nauseam
Shocking every land is 3 lives, while the duel is 1 life. That's Sylvan Rivalry is like you take 8 and you take 3 for your land. That's 11. that's 1 turn. That's not viable, right?
You got 2 turns. You draw 4 cards for 2 turns. That's not worth it.
That's worth it if you're playing turbo. Okay, I'm gonna draw 4, pay 16 life. Okay, good. I'm gonna win. If you're playing Kadena, you're not gonna win. And on turn 3-4. So yeah, having proxies is very important. But again, it's like LGS and paper tournament rules. Maybe Wizards is. I don't think Wizards interfere with Commander tournaments. No, but I think they do have rules for the LGS, like. I'll tell
LGS, you how they work with LGSs. For the most part, there's like a little rule that LGSs cannot endorse proxies if they're like a licensed LGS with them. So if they want to do like those qualifiers, they need to we do not approve of these proxies because they want to run the bigger tournaments for you guys. They want to offer that. But if you're like me and live out in Texas where we don't got those things most of the time, our LGSs go like, listen, the only singles we sell are the fanciest singles we can find because we know you suckers are going to buy them because they look shiny. And it's like, you know what? You got us. And they're like, also tournament staples because guess what? When it's tournament time, that stuff all gets bought by people who need to play the next day. And you know what? It then gets sold back to the LGS. Immediately for half the day after. They're like, yep, let me, you paid $70, let me give you a hot $15 for that.
No.
It's what they do. And to be fair, like it's what they gotta do. But cool. I love, it's nice that you have an LGS that you can go and play real good games at.
I'm very happy to have an LGS near me, man, because I lived all my life in Lebanon, which is not a very fortunate country or a very rich country to have to be exporting Magic, right? And not having access to good Magic is sad. You know, Magic is very fun to play. cEDH is very fun to play, and I'm just happy to be in Europe to be able to participate in these things, basically.
Cool. Yeah. Anyone you want to give a shout out to, or anything else you want to mention?
I'm gonna shout out my LGS friends, they are very supportive, and we usually have much fun playing, and they actually enjoy playing against my Kadena, which is rare. And shout out to my best friend who's been helping me prepare for the tournaments.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think that about wraps it up for Kadena. So let us move on. Coming up on the Off Meta podcast.
Every time I get someone for the first time where I like thought not seer them in their draw step, their mouth is burning. Like that is not something that you think about when you like vamp tutor and then you're like getting uncounterably thought seized in your draw step.
All right, we are back with Ka0s from Ka0s Tournaments, who's going to tell us a bit about Yisan. So would you like to introduce yourself, tell us a bit about how long you've been playing, what you play mostly in cEDH?
Yeah, for sure. So like he said, my name is Ka0s. I've been playing for way too long, kind of like a boomer Magic player. I think I've been playing since like Mirage Block or something.
Oh, wow.
Way too long. I've been playing a lot of Yisan lately. I guess it's kind of like my pet deck. Really, though, I kind of play a little bit of everything. Samurai could probably attest to that. I kind of just switch decks like twice a week and just kind of play whatever I'm feeling. So, I mean, I play everything from like Anala to Blue Farm to weird stacks decks, just kind of, I don't know, just kind of what I'm feeling at the time, I guess.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, like what's your experience with online tournaments and cEDH in general? Like, how long have you been in this community?
I see the smile on your face. So I originally started I want to say like 6 years ago or something like that, and at least with the online scene, I was like a really heavy like tournament grinder back in the day. And then I kind of like, I don't want to say got more casual with it. That sounds kind of not the right verbiage, but I started playing like cEDH online and joined like the Nexus and started playing on there. And then I guess for anyone who likes to play on online tournaments, you've probably heard my name thrown around. I am the same person as Ka0s Tournaments, for better or worse. And occasionally I'll play in some of the events as well. So I don't know, usually sometime every once in a while you'll see me playing some pile of cards.
Yeah, I see in brackets sometimes. Yeah, very true.
I've definitely seen your name in some of the more notable places. You've also been on a couple of streams. I think you were like Docs the Extortionist at one point.
The Dockside Extortionist, yeah, that was another. I'm surprised you remember that. That was like a stream team from like, I don't even know, like maybe 5 years ago or something, and we just kind of like
just before COVID.
We just kind of bullshitted and played some games, and it was just like a group of a bunch of idiots, really just memeing around and we were like, hey, let's stream this, I guess.
I think that's where I first saw you.
Really? Oh man, you're a boomer as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, those are I don't know, the good old days, I guess. I don't know. I feel like I've dabbled in a lot of different things throughout the years.
So with this Yisan deck, I just got like, I'm gonna start off with like the easiest question. Why? Like, why this deck? Why Ka0s? Why?
So part of it is maybe the part of my brain that's broken. I really like toolboxy decks and decks that have a lot of decision points, a lot of different kind of avenues of play. And obviously, like Yisan covers those bases, and it's an instant speed deck. And I think being able to win an instant speed is super, super strong. Just in Magic in general, like obviously in cEDH, when you're playing against 3 other people, if you can win on someone else's turn, that's 3 other turns that you can win instead of just your own. But mostly it's like the toolboxy aspect. I've always been like a huge fan of those kind of decks.
So really quick, we should probably just, for those listening, explain what Yisan does. He's a 3-mana 2/3 human rogue, and then you can spend 3 mana, tap, and put a verse counter on him, and then you search your library for a creature card with the CMC equal to the number of verse counters on Yisan. So
and
the first
for
time
what
you do
it's worth,
yeah.
he was eroded recently. Apparently, he also has the creature type Bard.
Huh. I mean, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But,
Took him long enough.
Right. What's his now? Is he like a Bard rogue?
Like a human rogue Bard, I believe.
Yeah. Oh, so he is dual classing. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's above a certain level. Okay, that makes
exactly.
sense. So good. So like what? Like you say, like you run him because you like toolboxy decks. Like, why is this a better toolbox than some of the others?
Obviously, the big part is you can activate him at instant, which obviously is super important when you're trying to stop other people from winning. Mm-hmm. Obviously being able to win on your own. So mostly it's the instant speed part, and you kind of get to like your kind of politics avenue with this deck is kind of like, hey, look, I can go do this, so you shouldn't do that. So if someone's like thinking about getting a dockside, you can say, well, hold on, if you get a dockside, I'm going to put this oof into play on your turn. So you can there's like weird politics that you can do with the deck, which is like another interesting part of playing it. But yeah, having those silver bullets like Collector Oof, instant speed endurance with Yisan on 3, can't counter it, so it's real hard to get around it. And then you have some other kind of weird things like Manglehorn. You can Thought Knot Seer someone on their draw step. So if they mystical for like a Toxic Deluge, you can rip it out of their hand in their draw step. And there's kind of a bunch of other things similar to that. Sneaking in a Dosan on someone's end step is pretty nasty occasionally. And yeah, there's just a lot of ways for you to stop other people from winning. And even just the threat of it will stop people. So even just having the card in your deck sometimes is just good enough, and then you can go get something that progresses your board state.
Okay. So yeah, what are this deck's strengths? Like what makes this good compared to some other deck? Like besides what you've mentioned?
I think, I mean, not to backpedal too much, but I think kind of what I mentioned is like probably a big part of it. But honestly, I think like maybe that's 50% of it. I think the other 50% is people are like, he's playing mono green. Like, what's he gonna do? Like they really, really underestimate like what Yisan and some mana can do. And I think that's like a huge part of it. And again, probably Samurai could attest to this. I'll often just say like, guys, I'm playing mono green. What am I gonna do? Like, and obviously what's my answer have an idea.
What do I say every time? What do I
say every time? Don't listen to him.
I always say, he always goes, I'm mono green. What am I gonna do? And I just always say, win.
And like, I mean,
what's his plan? Is he gonna win, guys?
Is it a little bit of politicking? Yes. Is it completely wrong? No. It is still mono green at the end of the day. But really, like another thing that I really like about the deck is it's at this point it's so like rogue. People just don't really know what you're doing. That it becomes like a huge advantage. Like people will see him on like one verse counter and they just have no idea what you're doing, which obviously can be a super big strength of the deck. Of course, like being able to do everything at instant speed is like the best part. I think that's pretty easily a close second.
Yeah, I am noticing that you are like a diverse like catalog of creatures that interact in different ways than most. Like, I'd probably say one of my most annoying things as you run is a freaking heap doll.
Heap doll is the GOAT, dude. The amount of people I've blown out with heap doll. And for anyone who doesn't know what it is, it's a stupid little, costs 1 colorless. It's a 1/1 scarecrow, and you sack it to remove a card in a graveyard from the game. And the amount of people I've just obliterated with that card because they just have no idea that I can stop their breach line with a Yisan on 0, or like yoink a reanimation target, or like anything like that is pretty is pretty stellar. And there's a lot of really weird kind of silver bullets like that. Some a little more well known than others, but that's definitely one of the more unknown bullets.
The unknown knowns.
Yeah.
Obviously, you got to add Pick Your Poison, one of the newer cards.
That card has been pretty good.
Yeah.
What is that, by the way? Is it an instant or?
Unfortunately, it's a sorcery, but it costs a green, and it's got 3 modes, and it's each of your opponents sacrifices an artifact, or an enchantment, or a creature with flying. And obviously, some of the weaknesses with this deck is like a Grafdigger's Cage. So being able to like have people sack that is obviously pretty good. You know, people have like a Ristic and a Fish or something, like pretty sweet to kill both of those in one shot. Obviously, if they're controlled by different opponents, but it's like it's just kind of like a very good kind of basically like a stacks piece for 1 mana.
Yeah.
Then I see you added Archdruid's Charm too. Like, it feels like this deck is just like a lot of silver bullets. Like how does it actually win? Like, what's the combo?
So that's an interesting question, because there's kind of a bunch of different combos, and a lot of games it's kind of weird because you kind of trying to ride this fine line of stopping your opponents from winning, but also kind of cobbling together your own win condition. Probably 90% of your lines involve Ashaya, which is a 5-drop. It turns all your creatures into forests, among you know, whatever else they are. The saying that I like to use is basically Ashaya combos with a ham sandwich. Like, if you have Ashaya and almost something else or anything else, that usually is good enough to win. And that's not always true, but there are a lot of things. So basically, you'll use things like Hope Tender, where you pay 1 mana and exert it, and you get to untap 2 lands. And now it's a land itself, so you untap itself and any of your lands. Obviously, with Hope Tender, since that costs 1, you need something that makes at least 2 mana off of a land. Usually the easiest one is there's a 4-drop, Argothian Elder, and that one just doesn't cost anything to tap. So it's just tap and its cost, and it's untap 2 lands. So you untap itself and any land, and that makes infinite mana. And then once you have infinite mana, Yisan is also a land at this point. So now you have infinite untaps on Yisan. You could kind of verse further up the chain. I won't get super into detail because it gets pretty obscure how you actually finish the game or do loops, but basically you'll kind of go up and you can either do Craterhoof Behemoth is obviously super easy to kill everyone with. The version that I play essentially has 2 different loops that you can do. So you can do Protean Hulk loops. TLDR with that is you thought not seer everyone to death, which doesn't happen in cEDH very often. And the other version kind of involves Yeva, so you get to play Yeva. Now all the creatures in your deck, all the green creatures that you want to cast have flash, and you can use Duskwatch Recruiter to draw all the creatures in your deck, and then you can do a bunch of kind of different loops. And this is kind of one reason why I like this deck, because there's a lot of weird lines. People don't know what you're doing, and there's kind of replacements for all of these weird pieces. So like if Argothian Elder's missing, you can use Hope Tender, but if that's missing, you can kind of fill in the gaps with Protean Hulk, and then like there's different ways to loop and different outlets, and it gets really, really intricate once you start getting into games.
I see. Like one of your main wins is probably using Destiny Spinner to turn all your creatures that just entered into the battlefield into hasty lands,
Yes.
which I love.
So the little known part of Destiny Spinner, like most of us know that you can turn your lands into creatures. Since all of your creatures are now lands, you can use Destiny Spinner to basically give any of your creatures haste, since that is a keyword on Destiny Spinner's ability. So I've actually had really, really weird games where my combo got kind of awkward, and I had to actually sacrifice my Yisan to Sylvan Safekeeper because Yisan is a forest. And then I'd have to recast Yisan, activate it with Destiny Spinner to give it haste, and then start versing back up the chain, and sometimes having to do that again. The lines get really, really weird sometimes. And that's definitely one of the more weird ones.
Ka0s, would you say the second verse was the same as the first?
You know, the second one definitely feels better, especially when your opponents are like, "I'm sorry, what are you doing?" Like you're sacrificing your Yisan How? You're giving it haste How? What are you doing? Like, that's probably one of the more fun aspects of this deck is sometimes you can just run circles around your opponents and they're just like, I don't know what you're doing.
I see you also have an infectious bite loop.
Yeah, so especially with a lot of people playing the One Ring, you need to be able to kill them through a One Ring. Obviously, you cannot target them with Thought Not Seer, so that's like an issue. So kind of your two main ways to kill people through the One Ring, and also like these just come up in normal games if like your other pieces are missing or anything like that. Yeah, you can actually loop Infectious Bite and give everyone infinite poison counters because it doesn't target players. You just basically can beast within any number of permanents and then just start infectious biting them. Which is
you can just keep hitting the One Ring.
Weird.
Can't hit other things.
Also that. And then the other way, which is a little more convoluted, is looping activations of Elvish Reclaimer, and using Elvish Reclaimer to loop. There's two different lands you can use. You can either use Gaia Reach Sanitarium, and there's another one that's escaping. Oh, not Manamo. I can't. No, I don't have it in the deck. It's just like another one that you can use that basically everyone. Oh, Mikokoro.
Yeah.
So you have two ways of winning around people with protection: is either giving them infinite poison counters or just decking them with Gaia Reach. And then obviously you're playing Endurance, so you can keep Endurance looping yourself. With either like Yisan or Protean Hulk loops.
And you could basically blow up all their permanents because of Beast with it. Yeah, wow. This deck is just like It's so
it's
annoying
kinda
how
weird.
many lines you have.
It's one of those decks that you look at and you're just like, man, there's so many stupid green cards. But like once you really get into the weeds, like there's some crazy stuff that you can do. And I've had plenty of people who are like, I'm under a one ring. What are you gonna do? And I was like, well, I have like 3 different ways to still kill you. So which one would you like? And they're like, oh.
They can like still lose life and stuff, right? Yeah, they can get poison counters.
Yeah.
How else do you kill them besides poison counters if someone's under a one
Make
ring?
them draw out.
Gaia Reach Sanitarium, which is a loot land, so you can kind of keep looping. You can keep looping that with Reclaimer to just deck them.
Right.
You could also get rid of all of their permanents using Beast Within.
Yeah, you can also you can that's like a pretty good one as well. So like even worst case scenario, you can blow up all their permanents and then fight them all, and then they don't have anything. But usually the previous 2 mentioned are usually good enough.
Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, what is your game plan or like general strategy? And that will, I guess we talked about that a bit more, but yeah, how does this deck function in the early, mid, and late game?
So you're definitely weaker than I guess most cEDH decks early in the game. A lot of times your hands are going to be like 2 lands, a dork, and some other stuff. And usually your game plan is cast a dork on 1, cast Yisan on 2, and then you can kind of start playing the game on turn 3. Obviously, you have like some hands you can get them out on turn 1. It makes it a little easier. But this is definitely a deck where you want to see 3 other blue decks at the table. Like you want them to keep each other in check for the first like 2 turns. Mm-hmm. And then once you can get to turn 3 is really when you can start playing and start like really being impactful. And actually, I probably forgot to bring this up when we were talking about the deck strengths. Honestly, one of the biggest strengths of this deck is you don't really care about counter spells. Like you cast Yisan on turn 2, you don't have to cast anything for the rest of the game. The amount of games that I've won where my opponents, like all 3 of my opponents have like 4 counter spells in their hands. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm not going to cast anything. Like I'm just going to kill you guys. That's like a huge strength of the deck is you just, obviously like if you draw a natural order, like you want to cast it, but largely speaking, like you put Yisan into play on turn 2 and you don't have to cast anything else. And then kind of going back, that's kind of your mid game strategy is just getting Yisan out by turn 2. The mid game strategy is definitely you're trying to balance staxing where you need to stacks and progressing your board state, which usually just involves like getting more mana, putting a combo piece into play, like maybe a Curian Ranger or a Scrib Ranger, so you get an extra untap on Yisan, try to activate him twice in 1 turn. And generally that early game, the first verse, if ever humanly possible, I always try to get Sylvan Safekeeper because that will protect your Yisan, until the end of time. And then usually the threat by mid game is trying to get Oof in play. If you get an Oof in play with a Sylvan Safekeeper, your opponents are not going to be happy, like at all. It is so hard to get through that. And I think that's kind of the main point of that mid game is like get Yisan, if at all possible, get Safekeeper on 1. Obviously, sometimes you have to get like a Haywire Mite or a Heap Doll or something to like interact. But if you can get Safekeeper, amazing. And then that mid game is kind of just, again, balancing, stopping people from winning and progressing kind of your verses up. Because the ideal is you get to 5 and you can try to win. So you want to kind of stall the game out to get to that point. And then the late game, a lot of times, honestly, you'll get to points where you couldn't quite get all of your combo pieces into play because like other people are trying to win. So you're like, like I said, thought not searing people on the draw step and putting a collector oof in play, or maybe endurancing someone, and you just don't get the time to get your combo pieces. By the late game, if you can't assemble that, you can throw a Seedborn Muse into play. And then basically in like 1 or 2 more turns, you're putting a Protean Hulk into play, or you're threatening to hoof the whole table like on your next turn. Obviously the plan is to combo on someone else's turn. But you have a lot of like cool pivot points. And I guess one cool thing that you can do that maybe a lot of people don't realize is, and maybe this gets into the next point that we're kind of going to go over. But Yisan works really weird. So if you activate him and then you hold priority and untap him with something like a Curian Ranger and activate him again. So let's say Yisan's on 3. If I activate Yisan, he goes to 4. Hold priority, untap him, and then activate him again, and he goes to 5. You actually get 2 verses on 5. Instead of getting a 4 and then a 5, you actually get 2 5s. So a really big, super strong game plan for this deck is to get to 3 with an untapper, double verse on 5, and you go get a Shaya and Seedborn Muse at the same time. And then at that point, like, the world is your oyster. Like, you can go to the next person's turn and you can, basically do anything you want. And that's like a super crazy thing that people don't realize is like the double versing technique.
Double verses.
It's really sweet, especially when people are like, yeah, okay. And then you're just like, Seedborn Muse Shaya, and then they're like, oh God, like, this isn't good.
Okay, so like, if I was gonna break down your early game, that's the best part. We don't. Your mid game is let's go, and your late game is I'm not casting another spell. I hope you picked up counter spells in interaction, because guess what? It's not working on me.
Yeah, and like I said, that's like a super, super cool part of the deck is like, basically after you put Yisan in play, you don't really have to cast anything else. Like, obviously there's times where like you turn Scrib Ranger into a forest and now it can bounce itself to untap other things, and then you have to like keep playing the Scrib Ranger. That's like one of the lines. But a lot of times, yeah, you can just sit there and it feels really good when a bunch of other people have counter spells that they're throwing at each other, and you're just sitting there like, do, like, how does it feel getting your stuff countered? I don't know how it feels. Yeah.
Just dodging under. It's like, yeah, they're definitely firing the artillery. But I'm gonna go get the flag real quick and win this.
I'm just hiding in the trenches, just waiting for my opportunity to like whip out the big fucking laser beam that no one sees coming.
Everybody fighting in the middle of the map. This guy going for the Spartan laser.
Yeah, 100%.
So Yisan gets killed. Real quick, if Yisan gets killed with the ability on the stack, do you still search, or you get to search for 0?
Yeah, so like Samurai said, it would be last known. So that definitely comes up. And it's kind of convenient that way, right? Like, if they kill Yisan in response to your verse, if you don't have a way to protect it, you get to go get something. Like, for example, if you're like, all right, well, maybe I'll go get a combo piece on verse 2, but then they kill Yisan. Well, instead of getting a combo piece, maybe I'll just go get like a Priest of Titania to help me recast Yisan next turn. Right. And that's definitely like the biggest weakness of the deck is people killing Yisan. Which again is why like getting Safekeeper on 1 is like super, super important. Funny enough, it's also one of your combo pieces when you start doing weird Protean Hulk stuff, because you turn the Hulk into a forest and then you can sack it to Safekeeper. Super weird. You don't normally see Protean Hulk being sacked as a land to a Safekeeper, but it's actually one of the main lines of the deck, which is very odd.
Yeah, you don't see that often.
No.
Oh, what are like some tips you'd like to give to players playing this who are just starting to pick this up? Like, what's something like that you wish you had known when you first started playing this?
Definitely the double versing thing. Super, super important, and something that a lot of people don't realize that you can do. Um, I think another thing is, just because you have the silver bullet to basically stop most win conditions, does not mean you should be the one jumping to do it. It's almost like using a counter spell, right? Like, if someone's ahead of you in turn order, you want them to use their counter spell first, instead of just being like, oh guys, I have one, I'm going to use mine. And it's kind of a cool advantage to the deck, because a lot of people have no idea what you're doing, what's in your deck, like what you can do. And you can just sit there and just, your Oracle resolves, your Tainted Pact resolves, like, and usually the whole pod's like, oh man, we lose, and then you're like, all right, I'll first on 3, here's an endurance. So you can kind of gauge a lot of times, like, if people have interaction. Obviously if they don't, you're kind of like the last line of defense, but a lot of times you can just get them to use stuff. So I guess what I'm getting at is, like, a good tip is to just don't pull the trigger just because you have a gun in your hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Other people can have guns too. Let them pull the triggers first. Yours are a little more sneaky than theirs.
Just because you're Clark Kent doesn't mean you can't let Batman get the win.
Exactly, 100%. So yeah, I think double versing. I think, like, I guess you'd call that like politics to some extent.
Priority bullying.
And really, like, the deck has so many weird interactions and like weird pivot points and stuff like that. Like, you really have to, like, play the deck. Like, goldfishing just doesn't help, because this is the kind of deck where, like, you draw certain pieces get killed, certain pieces, like, get wheeled or exiled, and you have to find these, like, you have like combo line A, and then some games you have to go all the way down to like combo line G. And like, if you're goldfishing the deck, like, you're not practicing how to, the combo line G, which you, like, never would think of. And there's just a lot of super weird interactions with, like, what you can do now that all your creatures are forests, like kind of how we explained with Destiny Spinner, and like sacking your Yisan to reset counters. And like, there's so many weird things that, like, you just have to play the deck in real games, because, like, the things that come up in real games, like, you're never going to think about in gold. And I think that's, like, most of it. And it's kind of like one of the big appeals to me of the deck. It almost feels like mono green Inala, where, like, yes, you can learn the Inala Spellseeker line, and once you know it, like, it's fairly easy to do. But it gets hard once, like, 2 of your pieces go missing. Now, how do you fill in the gaps? And it's not something that, like, easily comes up in Goldfish. So just playing games like that, that's honestly, like, the biggest tip.
Okay, so this is like the difference between, like, boxing and, like, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like, you can learn how to throw a punch, and you can do weight training all the time, and, like, you can build up strong muscles, you can throw 1,000 punches, and you get into a fight, and you can definitely hit someone in the face if you've never fought someone before in boxing. But, like, this is like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, where it's like, yeah, if you don't know how someone's going to interact when you put them in a chokehold, you're not going to land the chokehold.
Like, you can practice wrestling and read books and learn all about jiu-jitsu and all that, but it gets a lot different when, like, one of your legs and one of your arms is, like, behind your back because they're restraining you. Like, and now what are you gonna do? Like, there's been plenty of games where I'm like, man, this is so weird. Like, now my line is, like, to put a Hulk into play and go get, like, 2 stacks pieces to stall the game out till my next turn, where normally, like, hulking would be a win. It gets so weird, the amount of things you can do. And for anyone who's, like, played against me playing this deck, kind of the meme is like, oh, it's Ka0s. Ka0s is thinking, here we go. He's going to think for 20 minutes and then pass. Just because there's so many different lines that are available.
What? Do people actually say that when they play you? I am shocked.
Yeah.
Shocked, I say.
Yeah, no. And it's kind of a common theme because these are the decks I like to play, is where like at any point in the game you have like 15 different decisions you could make. And there's merit to all of them, and you have to find out which one fits the puzzle the best.
Like, these are 99-point answers, but to win this game, you're going to need that 101-point answer.
Yeah, and I mean, I've played this deck a lot, and I still find myself doing new things every day. Like even just this week, I played a game where there were 2 oppos in play, so I can't.
My God,
I can't like keep versing up. Like I'm just versing into oppos, but I had infinite mana, so I had Argothian Elder, so I had infinite untaps. So my line was actually the other player was totally mana screwed, and they were just trying to at some point draw mana to cast a wheel. So I actually used my Argothian Elder because I can untap anyone's lands, and I was actually untapping their lands so they could cast a wheel, so I could find interaction for these 2 oppos. And then the other player is playing Atraxa, and they're like, they have a Smothering Tithe, and they're like flickering Atraxa. So the other player, now this is the 4th player, I'm untapping their lands so they can interact with this other person, but they also have an Oppo and an Archivist of Algma. And we like killed the other guy's Oppo. And now this 4th player, I'm like purposefully versing into their Oppo to give them like endurance so they can endurance this other player. And I'm like versing into the Archivist to give them draws and untapping their lands so they can interact with that 3rd player that's going crazy. Like it's not often where like you're sitting there as mono green and I can give anyone infinite mana. I can verse into Oppo to give them interaction. I can draw them cards. Like it was super weird. And like I haven't gotten to do that basically until this week. So like there's always just weird stuff that can happen. And like it turns out like that was the best thing I could do, was basically I was playing mono green Mindslaver, so I was just playing 3 versus 1. Super weird.
Oh man, like what are some cards that you're playing that you've had like that are like you're like don't understand why more people aren't playing? Like what's some of your like secret tech in this deck that you feel should be in more decks but isn't?
So I definitely have a few. I was before like Archdruid's Charm and Pick Your Poison came out. I was actually playing Warping Whale, which is actually basically the best solution to Toxic Deluge in mono green. But obviously like these other 2 cards are on their own more powerful, so I ended up cutting it, at least for now. But my secondary kind of nod to Toxic Deluge, which is a little weird, but it's a card called Adaptive Spore Singer. So it's a 3 mana 2/2, has some other text on it, doesn't matter. But basically when it ETBs, you can either give a creature +2/+2 in vigilance, or you can proliferate. So the one thing that does is you can give your Yisan +2/+2, and hopefully if someone deluge, they're going to deluge on like 3 or 4. So you can get around. It's a very ghetto way of getting around deluge, but it's happened. I've done it. But it's also like you can just put it into play, and it's like a pseudo untap because you can add a verse counter with proliferate. So that's like a very odd way of dealing with deluge, but like it comes up sometimes. Right. And another one that was talked about when it came out, but like people didn't really play it, is called Cankerbloom, which is a 2 mana 3/2. You can pay a colorless and sack it, and it destroys an artifact, an enchantment, or you can proliferate. So it's basically like the 2 mana werewolf that does the same thing, that you can sack it, but it has the 3rd option of, again, proliferating to adding a verse counter. So you can like verse on 2, sack it. Now Yisan is on 3, and then your next one goes to 4. And there's some other weird things, like if you verse on 4 and then proliferate, now it goes to 5. So you can do some weird stuff with that. Those are like probably my 2 like biggest additions to the deck. Most, not that there's a lot of us, but most Yisan players are not playing Protean Hulk. The main benefit of like looping with Protean Hulk is you don't have to cast anything ever. So the biggest downside to the other kind of main outlet of winning is Yeva. You have to cast Yeva with Dusk. So you Duskwatch Recruiter, you can draw all the creatures in your deck, and then you Yeva, and then you can basically do whatever you want. If they counter your Yeva or Mindbreak Trap your Yeva, if it's not your turn, you're basically done. But with Hulk, you can do weird Hulk looping and you don't have to cast anything. And basically that just includes, so you have the Thought-Knot Seer, you have Endurance on yourself, and then you also have Slippery Bog Bonder. So this is another weird one. This is a Yisan staple. All my Yisan boys out there know exactly what this card does, and most people probably have no idea what it does. It's a 4-mana 3/3, has flash and hexproof. When it ETBs, you put a hexproof counter on any of your creatures, and then you can move any number of counters from other creatures onto that creature. So this is actually a way of resetting Yisan's counters. So basically what you do is you have like infinite mana, infinite untaps, you verse all the way up to Protean Hulk, and then you can Hulk get like Thought-Knot Seer, and then kind of in the middle of this you go like verse on 3 gets Endurance, you stack it, then you go get Bog Bonder, you stack it, go and get Hulk, sack that, sack the Bog Bonder, sack the Endurance, get Thought-Knot Seer, trigger that, sack it in response, and now all of that with your Hulk is getting shuffled into your deck. And then your Yisan goes back down to 1 or 2 or wherever you want to put it, and then you verse back up the chain again, and you just loop that infinitely. And that's kind of the main benefit. So the downside is you have to play Protean Hulk in your deck. And I have 1 extra sack outlet, which is Starved Rusalka, another terrible draft card. 1 mana, 1/1, pay a green, sack a creature, you gain a life. It's just an extra outlet if you don't have Safekeeper available. So you have to play a couple dumb cards, but it gives you that option of not having to ever cast anything, literally ever.
Have you thought about playing High Market? Like the land, is that in there already?
It's not. I've generally found you don't 90% of the time
Ominous Cemetery.
You don't need more than Sylvan Safekeeper as like your sack outlet. The Rusalka is basically just in there as a backup for if Safekeeper is gone. Again, Safekeeper plus a Shia, you can sack any of your creatures. I've definitely had it come up plenty of times where I need to go get the Rusalka.
You've got the ability to fight stuff too. Yeah, I can see what you're throwing down with that.
Yeah, it feels weird. I do like having both ways of winning, because on the flip side, like if people have graveyard interaction, like you want to go for the Yeva line, but like one's weak to a counter spell, one's weak to graveyard hate, so you can kind of like, for lack of better terms, pick your poison. But
God damn it,
I like having both options available.
This guy.
Other weird cards. A lot of these are kind of pretty stock for Yisan. I would say like maybe a card that some people don't play is Nylea's Intervention, which is green X sorcery. the second mode is deal a bunch of damage to flying creatures, not relevant. The first mode is you search your deck for X number of lands and put them in your hand. So this is very often like a 4 mana, go get Cradle and Beseiju, which is obviously incredibly strong if you get both of those in one shot. And you actually have like, I play probably more land tutors than a lot of people, just because like, dude, lands are really good. Like Gaia's Cradle, we all know that's strong. You can go get like Command Beacon to play around a Dranith. You have a couple lands that kill creatures. You play Homeward Path. Like you just have a lot of ways with your lands to kind of just like get around things. And I found that to be like, I mean, outside of like fight spells, like, and obviously Beseiju, like lands are just really good and kind of can do everything you want them to do. Like they kill creatures, they get around Gilded Drake, they kill Grafdigger's Cage, you know, with Beseiju, like, or you just go get Cradle and you like go crazy. And I've really liked kind of that avenue of like dealing with things.
It looks like you solved the problem of monocolored non-blue has with lacking like piece of interaction by going into your lands with that instead of like
I mean, you obviously have like fight spells, like Oppo is just like super annoying, and like Grafdigger's Cage and stuff is like pretty rough as well. But yeah, like you have so many different ways to tutor lands. Yeah, just like going and getting a Beseiju is like pretty nuts. Like, what are they gonna do? Counter it? You know, like most people aren't gonna counter a Sylvan Scrying. But then when it comes down to it, like they can't counter Beseiju. So
yeah, there's no way. I mean, they can swat it, but that's kind of rare that actually happens and it resolves.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, outside of that, there's a lot of weird cards, but a lot of them are pretty, I would say, stock for Yisan. I would say maybe 50-50 people play Craterhoof or not. I've won a lot of games with Craterhoof. I've actually had several games where like my opponents like my Yisan just went super far up the chain. Maybe it got to like 5 or 6 and I have a couple untaps, but like for whatever reason I couldn't win the game yet. And they're like, all right, I'm gonna deluge you for like 5, and I've responded and versed up to Craterhoof Behemoth to save my whole team. And they're just like, what are you doing? Pretty hard to deluge past that with a bunch of
it looks
like there's a lot of unknown creatures, but maybe to Yisan pilots, I would say most of them are pretty, I don't know, fairly common.
Yeah, it seems like your deck's doing better because we're going into this longer meta. And whereas like I feel like when we were like Rogside Turbos, Rakdos Turbo, Blue Farm Turbo, your deck maybe wasn't able to perform as consistently.
No,
like
I would agree. Obviously, like the biggest downside to this deck is like you time walk yourself basically twice. You play a Dork on 1, you play Yisan on 2. Turn 3, you finally get to start playing the game. And like the more blue players in the pod, the better, right? Like you just want them to interact with each other. Obviously, like occasionally you'll have draws where like you draw your Haywire Might or you draw your Heap Doll and you get to shove that into play early, and that maybe is enough to stop someone from breaching or something. But yeah, largely speaking, it's you kind of have to wait those couple turns. Which is funny because a lot of people are like, oh, you're playing a parasitic green deck, you know, blah, blah, blah. But once you get past that turn 2, you know, I always make the joke that like this deck is like mono green control. It really is. Like every win condition for the most part, like that people try to do after like your turn 3, you can just stop them. And like it's very evident to people that like, oh, he's not kidding. Like if he gets to turn 3, like this is like a control deck. Like I've had plenty of games where like I have twice as much interaction with the game than like everyone else combined. And they're like, oh wow, he wasn't kidding. Look at him go.
Yeah,
So
you
I
make all
guess
the
on that
mana too.
topic,
Ideally, you make all the mana. It doesn't always happen, but if you can find a way to put Gaia's Cradle in play, that's like it's like most of a combo right there, right?
Mhm.
a hot take from Ka0s. Gaia's Cradle, good card. Note this down, folks.
Yeah, turns out lands that make more mana than they're supposed to. Pretty good. Especially when so this is another weird combo is if you have Gaia's Cradle and Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth, you turn your Cradle into a forest. So now you can like activate Cradle, bounce it with Curian Ranger,
Oh,
replay it.
yeah.
That makes a lot of mana.
This guy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh,
So
well, yeah. So I guess we actually kind of got into our next one, which is what are the weaknesses. So I guess mainly if you're going against turbo decks.
Yeah, I mean, I think this deck is mostly weak to, I would say, 2.5 things. One is obviously decks that are trying to kill you like by like turn 2. The second one is people wrathing you. I mean, you're playing mono green. Like if they wrath you, like that's pretty rough. Luckily, wraths aren't super popular. Deluge is the most popular and sadly the hardest one to interact with. There's actually no way in mono green to like get around a deluge. You can't heroic intervention a deluge, like your stuff just dies. So sadly, like the best way is to like give your Yisan a couple extra toughness and hope he lives. And then I would say like the half point of weakness is like Oppo. Like Oppo's just good. Obviously, like if you verse into it, they get a card. It's not the end of the world. Like you can still very easily win past that. Obviously, the Oppo needs to go away, but them yoinking a card out of your deck is like not that big of a deal.
Yeah,
when
because it
all
can
of your
only
cards
be a
are
like
mid,
4-drop.
Yeah, so like whatever you verse up to, they get to pick, you know, if you verse into 3, they get to pick one of your 3s, but you have so many different ways of winning that it's fine if they take something out. Like if they take, even if they want one of your combo pieces, you can still win. Obviously, you generally need to kill the Oppo to be able to win, unless you have like other ways of winning. But if it's just Yisan, you still have to kill it at some point.
Right.
But it is at least fairly resilient. Like it's not like playing Oracle Consult where like if they just like yoink your Oracle, well, you're not winning that way anymore. So it's a little more resilient than that, but it still needs to die.
so like it looks like Oppo like works on 3 different levels against most people. Tip of the day. Oppo, first off, stops the search. That's great. Second, steals the card. Third, lets you play the card. Now, here's the thing. No one wants to play Ka0s's cards.
That's usually a pretty big one, yeah.
Yeah. 2, he has like redundancy pieces, so he doesn't care if you stole the card. So that's why it's like for other decks, it's like, oh well, you know, assist a search, I'm gonna get a good card, right? Like with him, it's like, what are you taking? Like Manglehorn? Like
yeah, that's usually
I was
like
thinking that,
like that's usually one of the better ones is like a Manglehorn. Otherwise, yeah, they're for most other decks, the cards aren't that good. And actually, it's funny you mentioned like the points of Oppo because the other one is they get to look at my hand. No one cares what's in my hand. It's all dumb mono green cards for the most part. I don't know if you're sitting at a table against Blue Farm, Rog Sai, and Yisan, you're not Gataxian probing the Yisan, I'll tell you that.
like, oh, is there an endurance?
That's basically the extent of it.
It's the biggest shocker.
Yeah.
So we know what cards are good against this deck is obviously board wipes. I've seen many of the games that you lose, you have no lands and no Yisan because they made you use your Sylvan Sacks and then killed your Yisan.
That happens sometimes, you know, some like looking back, like when you were in school, sometimes even the biggest, scariest kid gets bullied. Sometimes it just happens. It doesn't happen often, but sometimes it happens.
Sometimes you see them just
honestly,
sitting down
usually
on the curb.
the general, like, Oppo's scary to everyone. Like, everyone wants to kill Oppo.
Yeah.
So usually that one's not like the end of the world. And really, like, I've had plenty of times where I actually purposefully just keep versing into Oppo just to like set it up where my next one goes to 5. So like I'll just throw a 3 verse into it, throw a 4 verse into it, because once that Oppo dies, I'm going and getting a Shaya and you're losing immediately. And like you guys said, generally these cards, people don't want to cast them, so like they can take whatever they want. You know,
I just love it. Like two of the main things that make Oppo great. Yeah.
I mean,
it's like hitting you. It's like hitting you with a Ragavan, man. Like, what am I getting? A dork?
Nothing. Yeah, like
like
at best an artifact or something. Yeah.
But yeah, I think most games that, you know, obviously you can lose like a bunch of different ways, you know, just getting drowned out by Rajjix or whatever, like any other deck. But if you get deluged, that sets you back super far. If you get Wrath twice, I mean, you're basically done. Like, you're playing mono green. I don't know if any of you guys have like played elves in like a constructed format or something, but like if you get Wrath, it's like the worst feeling. If you get Wrath twice, you're just walking home. Like,
yeah,
and that's you know, and like that's just how it is. But the trade-off is, you know, maybe the biggest part is like, you don't care about counter spells, dude. You can have as many Fluster Storms and Force of Negations and whatever that you want. Like, they don't do anything.
Except that one MBT that you were not expecting.
Mindbreak Trap is a cruel mistress. Sometimes she just gets you. And yeah, I've had games where I'll go like, yeah, I'm like land, Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, Yisan, and then they Mindbreak Trap it. And like, really makes you think, like, next time, maybe I won't cast that Soul Ring. Maybe I'll just play the Yisan as my second spell. And I've started doing that. I'm like, it's not worth this Soul Ring to get Mindbreak Trap. Like,
no, because you just play the next turn
Whatever.
anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm different. When I'm playing Malcolm, I literally go like, "Do I have 5 mana? Yeah, let's see if this Mindbreak Trap hits the Malcolm. I'll live with that." But you got a whole nother turn you got to go through before your commander becomes good. You got a whole turn of waiting.
I guess to be fair, like another weakness is like if they just kill Yisan a bunch of times, like before you can get a Safekeeper or something, and it doesn't happen super often. It does happen, obviously, but usually people don't want to just like throw out their only piece of interaction on like a Yisan on 0 when there's like, you know, someone who might kill you with like a Glinthorn next turn or something.
Bowmaster's a hell of a card.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that. Yeah,
that one's fairly annoying. I don't know. I guess there's not really a better way of putting it. Like, it's not the end of the world, but it's super annoying. You have a lot of dork stuff. I mean, you can still win. You have like a lot of like 2 toughness creatures and like that you can still combo with and stuff. But like, once people start like, all right, I'm gonna feed the Rajjix study, so you get 3 extra pings and like that kind of thing. Okay, like you're probably not gonna win that game. Like, I've definitely had that happen.
Okay,
sadly.
We're not playing out anything until this Bowmaster's dead, and we're just gonna play dead until the Bowmaster's dead.
Yeah, luckily, like again with Yisan, like you get to pick what you put into play, so you can kind of play around it a bit. If they just jam it on 2, like before your second turn, and like start killing your dorks and stuff, like I don't know, that's pretty crappy, but I don't know.
That's like any green deck versus Bowmaster, right? Like,
for the most part, like people don't keep hands because it has a Bowmaster in it, right? People keep hands because it has a fish, because it has a Rajjix, because it has something that they're doing that's super strong, that like works into their game plan. Like, keeping a bowmaster, obviously, like you could keep it with a wheel or something, but like generally, bowmaster is like a card where you draw it a little later, or like, I mean, if someone has like, you know, the god hand where they have like a Rajjix and a counterspell and a bowmaster, like that happens. But for the most part, like people don't just like mulligan to bowmaster like they would like a Rajjix or something. So that's like, that helps a bit. Unless they're crazy, unless they're just like, man, I really want to kill these elves. I mean, I guess you could mulligan to it, but like, I feel like generally, it's not like, again, like it's not like mulliganing to a wrist.
You also build good positivity in your pod most of the time, I noticed, because you were willing to feed these fishes and Rajjix. Because most people don't feed it because they don't want their opponents drawing counter spells. You don't care. So I've seen you multiple times just go, yeah, I'm just going to feed that. Just draw your cards. I love you, man. I would never deprive you of these cards.
Sometimes, like, and don't get me wrong, it feels bad, but like sometimes the best way of dealing with someone who's ahead is feeding someone else. Like sometimes you just have to level the playing field, and sometimes you can't like reduce the resources that someone else has, but you can have another player gain resources. So at least if you have both of them kind of clashing, sometimes that can be better than just not doing anything. Sometimes people get a little mad or salty because they're like, oh, you're feeding them, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's like, you know, that sometimes the best thing you can do is help another player to help yourself.
Well, like sometimes you feed the wolf to kill the coyote, man. Like sometimes,
you know.
And it's like, oh, that's king making. It's like, no. King making would be if I intended him to win after this.
Yeah, you know, and you kind of have to like find that line of like, well, how many cards do I give them to like make it so they help save the game or something like that. And I don't know. Sometimes that's like a thing you don't super think about when you're like playing a blue deck and you have counter spells.
You know,
but you kind of have to like angle shoot a little like that when you're playing mono green, for example.
You're meat shielding. You're just hoping the meat shield doesn't get too heavy for you.
Yeah. You know, like sometimes your enemies are like your greatest resource.
You don't always have blue, but sometimes your opponents do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've had games where like, call me crazy, but like I've purposefully like wheeled into Smothering Tides and like and stuff like that. And like, don't get me wrong, most of the time it's not the best line, but like sometimes there's not really a lot of other choice. Like if three people have no cards and the Tithe player has like a grip and a lot of mana, sometimes you just got to try to level the playing field, man.
I'm hoping these 21 cards will combat this 21 mana that I just gave you.
Yeah, like, you know, sometimes you got to team up on people.
Sometimes you got to just flip that knife and see which way it lands.
You know, sometimes a lot of times it lands on your own foot, but sometimes it lands on someone else's foot. If you don't have any other choice, you know, like, I think one saying that I like to say to people is like, if you have two lines, the first line, you 100% lose. And the second line, you 99% lose. You should take the 99% every time. If you have a 1% chance of winning compared to 0, I'm taking that 1% every single time, no matter how bad it looks. Like, I'm taking the 1% every time, every single time.
Mm-hmm. There we go. So, question. How is it like playing in tournaments for the first time in forever?
Kind of cool. I mean, like I don't normally play in our tournaments. I've played in a couple. The first time I played Carrick and got 17th, which was a little sad, but you know, he tried his best. And the last time, I forget what my final place was, but it was top 8 with old boy Yisan. But yeah, I mean, it's super cool. Like being able to play in like pretty high level like cEDH tournaments, like sitting at my desk is pretty sweet. And like I know a lot of other people get to do it a lot. Like I don't get to do it a lot, and I try to do it at least every once in a while. But I don't know, it's always super fun. Like get to hang out with cool pods. Like generally, most people are there just to like. I mean, obviously, like they're all there to win, but like we're all there to like enjoy a hobby that we all love. Um, and like that's super evident like every time I play. Um, and yeah, I mean, like I said, kind of at the beginning, like I used to be like a really hardcore like tournament grinder, and getting to like jump back into that every once in a while is pretty cool.
Yeah, so anything else you want to say about the deck? Do you have any shout outs? Anything you got in the works you want people to know about?
Oh, in the works. I mean, so maybe a little selfless. Check out Ka0s tournaments if you want to play some cEDH tournaments online.
Yes.
I know a bunch of us are going to Punt City in April. A bunch of the staff is going, and we're gonna like hang out and get dinner. Maybe have like a little staff tournament and stuff. So if anyone's going to Punt City, look out for Samurai's mustache. He'll be like the flag. So yeah, if you see him, we'll be around. Not that it's super popular, but like the Yisan Discord has been like pretty helpful with like talking about stuff. I guess notably Migs is on there, who usually asks like what the hell I'm doing. And I think Oni as well is usually pretty on top of like checking what's going on. He was the first person that I saw that was playing Protean Hulk a while ago, and I was like, whoa, mono green Hulk, I gotta try this. So yeah, I mean them, and I don't know, I'm just gonna take the chance to like thank all of the staff at Ka0s tournaments. Like I love all those guys. They work super hard. They do an awesome job. And it's really just like a big group of people who like want to do something really cool for the cEDH community. And like, whether they do casting, help run the tournaments, or like anywhere in between. Like I just basically, I don't want to take too long, because I would do an individual thank you for each and every one of them, but just collectively, like, love you guys. You're awesome. We wouldn't be here without every single one of you. And obviously, like, thank you guys for taking the time and letting me talk about debatably meme cEDH deck. I think it's a little better than people give it credit for. Not much, but I think it has like a little place in the meta that's like kind of niche, kind of cool, kind of gets around what a lot of people expect to see out of a game, or I guess kind of things like that. Yeah, I don't know. Thanks everyone for cEDH. Like, what a cool format.
Cool. Well, yeah, thank you very, very much for agreeing to come on and talk about Yisan. I think that's about wraps it up with Ka0s, and then we'll do our spicy scale.
Make sure you rate Yisan nice and spicy.
We probably will.
Bro, like mayo. That's as spicy as mayo.
You can stick around for it. We got the old spicy scale up on the screen now. So it goes from bell pepper, and then we have Anaheim chili, and it goes all the way up to Carolina Reaper. So
I see the scale.
Yeah.
Where's the scale? Where's it up on the screen? Let me see.
It's in the questions and tips doc.
Oh. Yeah. Oh,
yeah. So I guess let's do Kadena first. I mean, I think it's real up there. Like, it's hard to think of something.
Reaper, brother.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. It is maxing out. I don't think you get more spicy in cEDH than Morph Control. Yeah,
Too
yeah.
spicy, man.
I
me some,
haven't
like, a
even
gallon
seen
of
the
milk.
list yet. And even without looking at the list, I probably have to agree. Like, if you see that at the table, like, you're just like, what is this guy? What pre-con did this guy bring? And then he whoops your ass, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, it is.
Like you can't predict it. It's so different from every other deck that we've ever seen on
It is.
like
It
a
is.
tournament. Like Animal
Yeah,
comes.
I love those decks where you just get your opponent's thinking. Like, it's just on such a different axis than everyone else that
Yeah.
like it becomes an advantage. And I think like, I mean, this format has been pretty well explored, right? And
Yeah.
like, I think that one of the biggest advantages that you can have is just playing on a different axis than everyone else. Cause like, they're not ready for it. They're not expecting it. They don't have the answers for it.
Yeah. They don't know what's going
Okay,
on.
so
Like,
Yeah.
there's no
I
idea.
just got out to play chess. Why are we playing Guess Where the Queen Is? Like,
Yeah.
what? How did I
Yeah.
lose money on this? Like, this was not the game that I signed up for.
Yeah, like I said earlier, like the other opponents are playing Magic, and the Kadena players over here playing Yu-Gi-Oh with like trap cards and all this
Hey,
silliness.
you know what? If you're gonna win a tournament playing Yu-Gi-Oh, it works.
Yeah, it might as well be a cEDH tournament.
It's definitely a good track record. I mean, like, we playing Yu-Gi-Oh out here, man. You other guys playing Magic, guess what? We're switching the game.
Yeah, if you don't know what Exodia is, you're gonna find out soon.
Oh, hold up. Whoop, whoop. My green screen is gone.
Oh,
Oh, no. Open my room.
God,
All
it's
right.
so spicy it burned his setup
yeah,
down.
jeez. Oh my God! Look, you can see the cards coming through it. They're poking out through real life. All right, so now we got to rate Yisan, which is okay. Let's see what I'm not gonna color anyone's opinion, so I'll go last. Chaos, what do you think on
You know, maybe I'm a little biased. Okay, so I think the deck as a whole is probably a little bit lower. Like I think there are some like Carolina Reapers like hiding in the deck that you can just whip out of nowhere and people don't know what the hell's going on. But I do think the deck as a whole is probably a little lower. But I think it is still pretty spicy. I would say probably like habanero chocolate. I think it's pretty spicy. Definitely not the spiciest. But I think it can get a little more spicy, like depending on where you are in the game or just like how you can surprise people. But I think it's just a good baseline, probably like habanero chocolate, maybe Jamaican Belle, somewhere in between.
Okay, yeah. So what do you think, Samurai? What do you think? Where do you think
All
the
right.
Yisan deck?
If I was gonna rate this, man, like, it's probably as spicy as, I don't know, like maybe a jalapeno, like for the
Oh,
average
man.
like
Yeah,
person,
yeah.
like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, yeah, you know, like you talk to like someone like who doesn't like eat ethnic food, like they're like, to them, like going to like, let's go to the Taco Bell. Like, I want some Mexican. I've never eaten it before. Oh, what's that? A jalapeno? It better not be too hot. Eat it. Oh, it burned out my mouth. But like, you go to like anybody that's ever like really done something, like gone to like Mexico, gone to like Juarez, and been like, yeah, that's just like normal. That's to bring you up to speed. That just adds sweetness. Like, spice? Nah. Maybe it's because I've been in this format for too long, but like, it's kind of like one of the more basic like cEDH decks. You know, it's been in the list. It was in the top 20 cEDH decks for so long that for me, it's like, yeah, it's gotten like some new spices on it. So maybe it's like a Chipotle now. You know, like it's got some smoke. It's got a different twang to it, but it's definitely not too spicy. Which,
I
in
will
my
say-
opinion, is what makes it so good.
I will say, I think you're right. Like, the deck as a whole is not like the spiciest thing you'll see. But I think at some points the crazy, super like weird lines and in-depth things you can do I think, skyrocket like on the spice scale.
Yeah, I
You
would
know,
agree.
like turning your Yisan into a land, sacking it to a safekeeper to reset it, recasting it, giving it haste with Destiny Spinner and stuff, like that's up towards Carolina Reaper. But as a whole, yeah, I could probably agree. It's more mid.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat there. I think at first I was like, I was thinking it was probably in the lower end. But considering the fact that Yisan hasn't been in the meta for years now, I think it's fair to treat it as like a new deck almost. And I think with a lot of stuff you've been saying, I think Habanero Chocolate is fair. Maybe Jamaican Bell because it is an existing deck. So yeah, well I think I'd say Jamaican Bell. We'll say 5,000 to 15,000 Scoville units. Is my opinion. I think
it's definitely something you can just pick up and you can enjoy. Maybe it'll burn your tongue a little bit the first time, but it's not something that'll like have you crying in the alleyway.
I'll tell you, every time I get someone for the first time where I like thought not seer them in their draw step, their mouth is burning. Like that is not something that you think about when you like vamp tutor and then you're like getting uncounterably thought seized in your draw step. Like that is not something you think about.
Oh god.
That's true.
The amount of times that people are like, all right, we got to wrath the board. All right, let me mystical for this deluge. And then I'm just like, no, thank you. And they're just like, what?
I thought
How are you doing that?
I thought this was a regular
I'll tell you, their mouth is on fire.
You're allowed to play colorless creatures in this deck? Oh my god. What?
Sir, I was promised mono green interaction. What is with this Eldrazi?
That's not green.
Oh man. You know what I noticed? So like these two off meta decks are really only benefiting. They're really only seeing like strong results because we're in the mid-range hell.
Yes. Yeah.
That we're in right now. It's mid-range hell winter. We thought it was going to be control winter, but we never got that cold. And it seems like these control decks are actually like thriving as they go. Yeah. Slowing the game down. Why don't we go a little slower? Like maybe.
Yeah, because like speaking from the trend that Blue Farm has gone, like we've gone from like a year ago where people were running like, you know, multiple rituals, culling the weak, Bergie, to today, and like taking my list or a lot of the other top players' lists. That's all been replaced with like Smothering Tide, with like, you know, sometimes you see like Talion, you like another draw engine. People are running the Ring. And it's just like such a good indication.
That slow down is Lotho. Yeah. You're expecting people to play two spells. Oh, so
I love seeing those cards as Yisan because like you at no point in your life are you ever feeding a fish or a Ristic or a Smothering Tithe or even Lotho.
I love it. Yisan's like, does that say non-creature? Oh, okay.
What is this non-creature? What is that?
Oh yeah, I use lands and creatures. That's it.
What is this word? Oh, we're sorry. He's mono green. He doesn't understand that word.
Oh, he's stupid.
He doesn't understand what a counterspell is. Could you explain it to him?
What is this drawing extra cards?
We don't do that here. Yeah,
you guys don't just play them onto the field. I thought we put extra cards onto the field a turn. Like that's what we do, right? Like from deck on the field. What you guys put into your hand? Isn't that overcomplicated? Why would you put it into your hand? You want them onto the field. Like skip a step. Come on.
The literal only two cards in this entire deck that can draw a card. One of them is Gaia Rechantarum. Doesn't really count because you have to discard, and the other one is Veil.
There's one more that can draw a card. It's Thoughtseize. It's the thought.
The thought not seer.
What? Not even for you. It's for an opponent.
Someone else. Yeah.
So hear me out here. This is really funny. Thought not seer. The way it's worded, the first part of the card, thought seizes them, but it exiles the card, so it's gone forever. The second part is when Thought Not Seer leaves the battlefield, target opponent draws a card. So I've actually had games where someone goes for like an Oracle win, but I'm already on 3. So I thought Not Seer and like I get to thought seize someone, and then I'm like, hey, can somebody kill my thought not seer or bounce it? And then I make the Oracle player draw a card.
Oh my god.
Because it doesn't have to be the same player.
Is there a way to Yisan into something to kill it?
I mean, if you go up to a Shia, you can sack it to Safekeeper.
Yeah.
Or if you have the Starved Salka, you can sack it that way as well.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, or again with a Shia, you can it's a forest, you can just bounce it with like Cure in Ranger or something.
Right.
But I've definitely had stuff like that where I'm like, all right, this person's gonna win. But if they don't win, the next player after them is gonna win. So I'll Thought Not Seer, hit the second person so they don't win next turn, and then have somebody interact with the Thought Not Seer and kill the person trying to win with Oracle right now. And then I just stop 2 people with 1 card.
Yeah, and there's even lands you can use. Like you can use Mouth of Ronem, or you can use this Ominous Cemetery to kill your own seer.
Yeah, and like again, like other weird ways to kill Oppo.
Yeah.
Good old lands.
Oh,
But yeah, it's like stuff like that where like you don't really look at that until like something weird like that comes up, and you're like, oh, wait a minute. This Thought Not Seer isn't just an outlet. Look at all the things it does.
It's also a bullet.
Yeah. Oh, it's a
bullet. It's
bullet.
not just a bullet. It's actually another bullet.
Yeah, it's 2.
All right, y'all. Well,
what?
That'll probably do it for this very first episode of this podcast. Thank you very much, Ka0s, again for popping in.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks for having me.
If y'all enjoyed the episode, make sure to like and subscribe to the video. Check us out on Spotify too.
Ooh.
All right. See y'all later.
Bye.
Thanks so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, maybe send this to a friend. And a huge thank you to our patrons, JR and Matt Tang.